Jungkook, if something happens to me, don't tell them the truth. Jimin's voice was barely a whisper, shaking, like he was already halfway gone, and the moment those words left his lips, everything around him collapsed. So before we go any further, I need you to tell me, what would you do if your best friend said something like that right before losing consciousness? And where are you watching from right now? Drop your country in the comments, because what you're about to hear, this isn't just another story. This is a moment that was hidden from the public for years, something even Army was never supposed to know. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share. Because once this starts, you won't be able to look away. It all began with a fight that wasn't supposed to happen. A simple argument in the studio that escalated in seconds. Voices rising, emotions snapping, until suddenly, Jimin was on the floor, and Jungkook was frozen in shock, his hands trembling like he had just crossed a line he could never come back from. But what no one realized in that moment was that this wasn't just about anger. It was about a secret Jimin had been hiding from all of them, something so dangerous that even Jungkook didn't fully understand it yet. And when the other members rushed in, what they saw and what Jimin said next would change everything between them forever. The studio door slammed so hard it echoed through the entire building, and for a second, nobody moved. The music that had been playing just seconds ago cut off abruptly, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than any noise. Jimin stood in the middle of the room, breathing unevenly, his chest rising and falling too fast, his eyes locked on Jungkook like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize anymore. Jungkook didn't look away. He rarely did. But this time, there was something different in his expression, something colder, sharper, like he was holding back more than just anger. "Say it again," Jungkook said quietly, his voice low but dangerous. Jimin let out a short, bitter laugh, shaking his head like he couldn't believe they had reached this point. "You heard me," he replied, his tone cutting. "Or do you only listen when it's convenient for you?" The tension snapped tighter. In the corner of the room, Namjoon froze mid-step, Jin's hand still on the door handle, Yoongi sitting back on the couch but fully alert now, Hoseok exchanging a worried glance with Taehyung. Nobody interrupted. Not yet, because they all knew this wasn't just a normal argument. This had been building for a long time. Jungkook took a step forward, slow, controlled. "You think I don't listen?" he said, his voice still calm, but too calm. Jimin's jaw tightened. "No," he shot back instantly. "I think you only hear what you want." The words landed harder than anything physical. For a brief second, something flickered in Jungkook's eyes. Hurt, maybe, but it disappeared just as quickly as it came. "Then maybe you should stop hiding things," Jungkook replied. And that was it. That was the moment everything changed. Because Jimin didn't respond right away. He just stood there, still, silent, and that silence scared everyone more than shouting ever could. Taehyung was the first to move, taking a cautious step forward. "Hey, what's going on?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light. But it didn't work. Jimin finally looked away from Jungkook, running a hand through his hair, his breathing still uneven. "Nothing," he muttered. "It's already over." But Jungkook didn't move, didn't blink. "No," he said firmly. "It's not." Another step forward. Now they were too close for comfort. "You don't get to walk away from this," Jungkook continued, his voice tightening now. "Not after everything." Jimin's eyes snapped back to him, something flashing across his face. Anger, fear, something else. "Everything?" he repeated, almost whispering. "You don't even know half of it." And there it was again, that hint, that crack in the wall Jimin had been building for months. Yoongi straightened slightly, his gaze sharpening. Namjoon frowned. Jin slowly closed the door behind him, like instinctively trying to keep whatever this was contained inside the room. Jungkook's fists clenched at his sides. "Then tell me," he said. But Jimin shook his head immediately. Too fast, too defensive. No, one word. Final. Jungkook's control slipped just a little. "Why?" he demanded. Jimin took a step back this time. "Because you won't understand." The air shifted. That sentence hit deeper than any accusation. Jungkook laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Try me." Jimin hesitated. And that hesitation was enough to confirm everything Jungkook had been suspecting. His voice dropped even lower. "This is about that night, isn't it?" The room froze. Hosok's eyes widened slightly. Taehyung looked between them, confused. Jin's expression hardened. Yoongi said nothing, but he was watching Jimin very carefully now. And Jimin looked like he had just been exposed. His lips parted slightly, like he wanted to deny it, but couldn't. "You shouldn't have brought that up," Jimin said quietly. Jungkook stepped closer again. "Then stop pretending it didn't happen." "It didn't involve you," Jimin snapped suddenly, his voice breaking through the tension like glass shattering. And that was it. That was the trigger. Jungkook's expression darkened instantly. "Everything you do involves me," he said, and there was something raw in his voice now, something personal. "You just don't want to admit it." Jimin's breathing got heavier again. His hand pressed briefly against his chest, subtle, but not subtle enough. Taehyung noticed. "Jimin?" he said softly. But Jimin ignored him. His eyes stayed locked on Jungkook. "You're wrong," he said. "For once, you're completely wrong." Jungkook shook his head slowly. "Then explain why you've been avoiding me." Silence. "Explain why you disappear every time I try to talk to you." Jimin looked away again. "Explain why you look like you're carrying something that's killing you and won't let anyone help." That one landed. Hard. Because Jimin flinched. Just slightly, but everyone saw it. Jungkook stepped even closer now, his voice almost a whisper. "What are you hiding?" And for a second, just 1 second, it looked like Jimin might actually answer. His lips parted, his eyes softened, the wall cracked. But then, something changed. His expression shut down completely. "Nothing," he said flatly. Jungkook stared at him. Disbelief. Frustration. Something deeper. "You're lying. And you're pushing too far." Jimin shot back instantly. The tension snapped again. Namjoon finally stepped forward. "Okay, that's enough." But he was too late, because in that exact moment, Jimin's breathing hitched sharply. His hand moved to his chest again, this time not subtle at all. His face went pale. Jungkook noticed instantly. "Jimin?" he said, his voice changing completely. Jimin tried to respond, but no words came out. His knees buckled, and before anyone could react, he collapsed. The sound of his body hitting the floor echoed louder than the argument ever had. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then everything exploded at once. "Jimin!" Jungkook dropped to his knees beside him instantly, panic replacing every trace of anger. Hey, look at me, Jimin!" Jimin's eyes were barely open now, unfocused, his breathing shallow and uneven. Jin rushed forward, grabbing his phone. "Call an ambulance!" Hosok was already moving. Taehyung froze in place, his hands trembling. Yoongi stood up slowly, his expression unreadable, but his eyes locked on Jimin with something dangerously close to realization. Namjoon crouched down beside Jungkook, trying to stay calm. "Jimin, can you hear me?" But Jimin wasn't responding properly. His hand weakly gripped Jungkook's sleeve. Jungkook leaned closer immediately. "I'm here," he said quickly. "I'm right here." Jimin's lips moved, barely. And then, he whispered something. Something so quiet, only Jungkook could hear it. And whatever it was, made Jungkook's entire expression change in an instant. Because the panic in his eyes turned into something else. Something colder, something darker. And before anyone could ask what Jimin had said, his body went completely limp. The sirens hadn't even started yet, but the room already felt like it was closing in on itself, like the air had been pulled out all at once. Jungkook didn't move. He was still on his knees, one hand gripping Jimin's shoulder, the other frozen mid-air like he didn't know where to touch without breaking something further. "Jimin, hey, don't do this," he muttered, his voice no longer controlled, no longer steady. This wasn't the Jungkook they were used to. This was someone unraveling in real time. Namjoon pressed his fingers gently against Jimin's neck, checking his pulse, his brows furrowing deeper by the second. "He's still here," he said quickly, trying to ground everyone, "but it's weak." What do you mean weak? Jungkook snapped, his head turning sharply. He was just talking, His voice broke. Jin was already pacing, phone pressed to his ear, his tone urgent. Yes? Urgent, he collapsed. He's unconscious, no. I don't know why. Just hurry. Hosak hovered near the door, opening it wide as if that would somehow make help arrive faster. Taehyung finally moved, dropping beside Jungkook, his hands shaking as he reached for Jimin's arm. Jimin, please. Yoongi stayed back just for a second longer than the others, but when he stepped forward, his gaze didn't go to Jimin first. It went to Jungkook. What did he say? Yoongi asked quietly. Jungkook didn't respond. His eyes were locked on Jimin's face, like he was trying to force him to wake up just by staring hard enough. Jungkook, Yoongi pressed, sharper now. What did he say to you? That snapped something. Jungkook finally looked up, but there was something wrong in his expression now. Something that hadn't been there before. Nothing, he said. Too quickly, too flat. Yoongi didn't believe him. Not for a second. But before he could push further, Jimin's body twitched slightly, just enough to make everyone lean in. His lips parted again, another weak breath slipping out. Jungkook immediately bent closer. I'm here, he repeated, softer this time. I'm right here. Jimin's eyes flickered, barely opening, his gaze unfocused but somehow still searching. And then, like he was fighting against something invisible, he forced out another whisper, this time a little clearer. Don't let them. His voice cracked, fading in and out. Jungkook's grip tightened. Don't let who? He asked urgently. Jimin? Who? But Jimin didn't finish. His head rolled slightly to the side, his body going slack again. Jimin? Taehyung's voice broke. And that was the exact moment the sirens finally pierced through the silence outside. Relief should have come with that sound, but it didn't. Not for Jungkook, because his expression didn't soften. It hardened. Completely. Like whatever Jimin had tried to say had already answered something Jungkook didn't want to face. The paramedics rushed in minutes later, fast, efficient, asking questions none of them could properly answer. How long has he been unconscious? Did he hit his head? Any known medical conditions? Silence. Too much silence. Namjoon tried to respond, his voice steady but uncertain. He just collapsed, out of nowhere. But that wasn't entirely true, and everyone in that room knew it. They lifted Jimin onto the stretcher, attaching monitors, checking his vitals, speaking in quick, clinical tones that only made the situation feel more real, more serious. Jungkook stepped back automatically as they worked, but his eyes never left Jimin, not for a second. We're taking him to the ER, one of the paramedics said. One person can come with us. I'm going, Jungkook said immediately. No hesitation, no discussion. Namjoon opened his mouth, maybe to suggest something else, but then he saw Jungkook's face and stopped. Because this wasn't something anyone could argue with. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and within seconds, they were gone. The rest of them were left standing there. The studio now eerily quiet again, but nothing about it felt the same anymore. Taehyung ran a hand through his hair, pacing. What just happened? He whispered, more to himself than anyone else. Jin exhaled shakily, leaning against the wall. This didn't come out of nowhere, he said. Yoongi crossed his arms, his gaze distant. No, he agreed, it didn't. Hosak looked between them, confused, frustrated. Then what are we missing? Silence fell again, heavy, uncomfortable. Because deep down, they all knew there was something Jimin had been hiding, something Jungkook had been getting too close to. And now, whatever it was, had finally exploded. Meanwhile, inside the ambulance, Jungkook sat frozen, his hands clenched tightly in his lap, his eyes locked on Jimin's unconscious form. The steady beeping of the monitor filled the space between them. Too steady, too fragile. Stay with us, one of the paramedics said, adjusting something on the machine. Come on, Jimin, stay with us. Jungkook swallowed hard, his throat tight. His mind kept replaying those words. Not the argument, not the collapse, but that whisper. If something happens to me, don't tell them the truth. His jaw tightened. What truth? And why? Why would Jimin say that to him? Out of everyone? His thoughts spiraled, faster and faster, connecting pieces he hadn't wanted to connect before. The late nights, the sudden disappearances, the way Jimin avoided certain conversations, the way he looked, tired, too tired. Jungkook's hands trembled slightly. "What did you do?" he muttered under his breath, barely audible. The ambulance hit a bump, and Jimin's body shifted slightly on the stretcher. Jungkook immediately leaned forward, instinct taking over. Hey, he said softly. You're okay. But Jimin didn't respond, and for the first time, Jungkook looked scared. Not the kind of fear that comes from losing control in an argument, not anger, not frustration. This was deeper, quieter, the kind of fear that comes when you realize you might already be too late. The ambulance sped through the city, lights flashing, sirens cutting through the night, but inside, time felt like it had slowed down. Every second stretched, every breath mattered, and Jungkook sat there, trapped between what he knew and what he was starting to understand. Because whatever Jimin had been hiding, it wasn't small, it wasn't harmless, and if Jimin's last conscious words were anything to go by, it was something dangerous enough to tear all of them apart. And Jungkook might be the only one who knew it. The ambulance doors burst open the second they reached the hospital, and everything moved too fast for anyone to fully process. Bright lights, voices overlapping, the sharp smell of antiseptic hitting instantly. "Clear the way!" one of the paramedics shouted as they rushed Jimin inside, the stretcher wheels rattling against the floor. Jungkook followed without thinking, his steps unsteady but determined, like if he stopped for even a second, something worse would happen. "Family?" a nurse asked quickly, blocking his path for a moment. Jungkook didn't hesitate. "Yes." The word came out instinctively. No explanation, no correction, and something about the way he said it made the nurse step aside immediately. They pushed Jimin through double doors, disappearing into the emergency unit, and just like that, Jungkook was left outside, alone. The silence hit differently here. It wasn't loud like the studio. It wasn't chaotic like the ambulance. It was controlled, too controlled. Like everything was happening behind closed doors, out of reach. Jungkook stood there, staring at the doors like he could see through them if he tried hard enough. His chest felt tight, his thoughts louder than anything around him. "If something happens to me, don't tell them the truth." He shut his eyes for a second, his jaw tightening. "What truth, Jimin?" he whispered under his breath. But there was no answer. Only the faint echo of machines and distant voices. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. It was impossible to tell. Time didn't move normally anymore. Then footsteps approached quickly from behind. "Jungkook!" He turned instantly. Namjoon, Jin, Yoongi, Hoseok, and Taeyoung, all of them had arrived, breathless, faces filled with the same mix of fear and urgency. "What's going on?" Namjoon asked, stepping closer. "What did they say?" Jungkook shook his head. "They haven't told me anything yet." Taeyoung looked toward the doors, his eyes wide. "Is he?" He couldn't even finish the sentence. Jungkook didn't answer. He couldn't, because he didn't know. And that uncertainty was worse than anything. Jin placed a hand on Taeyoung's shoulder, grounding him slightly, while Hoseok paced again, unable to stay still. Yoongi, as usual, said nothing at first, but his eyes went straight to Jungkook, observing, calculating, noticing what others might miss. "You're not telling us everything," Yoongi said quietly. The words cut through the tension instantly. Jungkook's head snapped up. "What?" Yoongi didn't look away. "Back there," he continued, his tone calm but firm. "Jimin said something to you." Silence. Namjoon frowned slightly, looking between them. "Jungkook?" Jungkook's expression hardened. "It wasn't important." Yoongi's gaze sharpened. "It was important enough to change your entire expression." That landed, because it was true. And Jungkook knew it, but instead of answering, he looked away. "He just wasn't making sense," he muttered. He was barely conscious. A lie, and Yoongi knew it immediately. But before he could push further, the emergency room doors opened again. A doctor stepped out, pulling down his mask slightly, his expression serious. Everyone stood up at once. "How is he?" Namjoon asked quickly. The doctor glanced between them. "He's stable for now," he said. "Relief hit, but only partially." "What do you mean for now?" Jin pressed. The doctor hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough to make Jungkook's stomach drop. "We need to run more tests," he continued. "His condition isn't something that just happens suddenly. There are underlying factors." The words hung in the air, heavy. Yoongi's eyes narrowed slightly. "What kind of factors?" The doctor looked directly at Jungkook this time. "Has he been under extreme stress? Irregular sleep? Any unusual behavior recently?" Silence. Again, because every single one of those questions had an answer, and none of them were good. Namjoon stepped in carefully. "He's been working a lot," he said. "We all have." The doctor nodded slowly but didn't look convinced. "This goes beyond normal exhaustion," he replied. "We'll know more after the scans." And with that he turned and went back inside. The doors closed again, and the silence returned. But this time, it felt different. Heavier, more dangerous. Tae-young sat down slowly, his hands clasped tightly together. "Underlying factors," he repeated quietly. Hoseok shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. Jimin would have told us if something was wrong." Yoongi didn't respond, because he didn't believe that. Not anymore. His gaze shifted back to Jungkook. Unless he didn't want to. Jungkook's jaw clenched again. "Stop," he said, his voice low. Yoongi raised an eyebrow slightly. "Stop what?" "Stop acting like you know something," Jungkook snapped, his frustration finally breaking through again. "You don't." Yoongi took a step closer. Not aggressive, but deliberate. "Then tell me I'm wrong," he said. Jungkook didn't respond. Because he couldn't. And that silence said everything. Namjoon stepped between them quickly. "Hey, this isn't helping," he said firmly. "We need to stay focused." Jin nodded, backing him up. "Jimin needs us right now, not this." But the tension didn't disappear. It just shifted, became quieter, more contained, more dangerous. Minutes turned into an hour. Then, another. Nobody left, nobody relaxed. Every time the doors opened, all eyes snapped toward them, only to fall again when it wasn't news about Jimin. Jungkook hadn't moved from his spot, not once. His mind kept replaying everything. The argument, the collapse, the whisper. And then something else started creeping in. A memory. Something small. Something he hadn't paid attention to before. Jimin, slipping out late at night, saying he needed air. Coming back hours later, looking worse, not better. Jungkook's eyes darkened slightly. "What were you doing?" he muttered under his breath. Because now, it didn't feel random anymore. It felt connected. All of it. And then finally the doors opened again. This time, the doctor wasn't alone. Another staff member stood beside him, holding a file. Their expressions were different, more serious than before. Everyone stood up immediately. "We have the initial results," the doctor said. Jungkook's heart started pounding harder. "And?" Namjoon asked carefully. The doctor looked at them, then down at the file, then back again, like he was choosing his words. "There are signs that this isn't the first time his body has gone through something like this." Silence. Complete. Total. "What do you mean?" Jin asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The doctor exhaled slowly. "There are indicators of repeated strain. Possible internal damage that's been building over time." Tae-hyung shook his head immediately. "No, that's not possible. We would have known." The doctor didn't respond to that, because the truth was, they didn't. Jungkook felt like the ground had dropped beneath him. Repeated strain, building over time, his fists clenched. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The late nights, the exhaustion, the avoidance. Jimin hadn't just been hiding something. He'd been dealing with it alone. And worse, he'd been getting worse, right in front of them. "We need to run more detailed tests," the doctor continued. "But whatever this is, it's serious." "Serious," the word echoed. And Jungkook finally looked up again. But this time, there was no confusion left in his eyes, only realization and something darker. Because whatever truth Jimin had tried to hide wasn't just about him anymore. It was about all of them. And the fact that none of them saw it coming might be the worst part of all. The word serious didn't leave the room. It stayed there, hanging between them like something alive, something that refused to fade no matter how much time passed. No one spoke at first. No one moved. Because once that word was said, everything shifted. The situation wasn't just about a sudden collapse anymore. It wasn't about a fight that got out of hand. It was something deeper. Something that had been quietly building while all of them were too distracted or too trusting to notice. Jungkook felt it the hardest. Not just the fear, not just the guilt, but the realization that he had been closer than anyone else, and still didn't see it clearly enough. His mind kept circling back to Jimin's face in the studio. The way he looked when Jungkook mentioned that night. The way he flinched. The way he shut down. This is about that night, isn't it? Jungkook had said it like an accusation, but now it sounded like a warning he should have taken more seriously. "We can't just stand here," Hoseok said suddenly, his voice tight with anxiety as he ran a hand through his hair again. "There has to be something we can do." "We wait?" Namjoon replied, his tone steady but strained. "That's all we can do right now. Waiting." It sounded simple, but it wasn't. Not like this. Not when every second felt like it was dragging something worse closer. Tae-young sat forward in his chair, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like he was trying to piece something together. "He's been different," he murmured. Jin looked at him. "Different how?" Tae-young hesitated. "Quieter. Like he was thinking about something all the time, even when we were together." Yoongi nodded slightly. "I noticed that too." Jungkook didn't say anything, but his jaw tightened, because he had noticed more than that. He just hadn't connected it. Or maybe he didn't want to. "He started avoiding meals," Yoongi continued, his voice calm but heavy. "Said he wasn't hungry. Said he'd eat later." Jin's expression shifted. "He did that with me too. I thought he was just trying to manage his schedule." Namjoon crossed his arms, his brows furrowed deeply now. "And the late nights," he added. He kept saying he couldn't sleep. Every piece they mentioned hit Jungkook harder than the last. Because he remembered all of it. He just never pushed hard enough to get answers. And now, it felt too late. "Why didn't he tell us?" Hoseok asked quietly, almost to himself. No one answered. Because the truth was uncomfortable. Maybe Jimin didn't tell them because he thought they wouldn't understand. Or worse, because he didn't want them to. Jungkook's hands clenched again. "He tried," he muttered suddenly. Everyone looked at him. "What?" Namjoon asked. Jungkook swallowed, his eyes still fixed on the floor. "Back in the studio," he said, "I wouldn't understand." Silence fell again. He finally looked up, and I proved him right. The words came out sharper than he intended. Tae-young shook his head immediately. "No, that's not—" "It is," Jungkook cut in. "I pushed him. I kept pushing without listening." Yoongi watched him carefully. "What exactly were you trying to get him to say?" Jungkook hesitated. For a split second, it looked like he might finally say it. "The truth," what Jimin whispered. But then, he looked away again. "I don't know," he said instead. Another lie. And this time, Yoongi didn't hide his reaction. "You're still doing it," he said quietly. Jungkook's head snapped back. "Doing what?" "Hiding things," Yoongi replied. The tension flared instantly. "I'm not hiding anything," Jungkook shot back. "Then stop avoiding the question," Yoongi said, stepping closer again. "What did Jimin say to you?" The room tightened. Namjoon stepped in again, his voice firm. "Enough." This time, it worked barely. Because Jungkook didn't respond. But his silence said everything Yoongi needed to know. Before anyone could push further, the doors opened once more. This time, it wasn't the same doctor. A different one stepped out, holding a tablet, his expression more urgent. "We need to speak with you," he said. Everyone stood up again instantly. Jungkook's heart started racing. Is he okay? The doctor glanced at him. He's stable, but his condition is more complicated than we initially thought. The word complicated didn't help. What does that mean? Jin asked. The doctor hesitated briefly, then spoke. We found irregularities in his system that suggest prolonged exposure to something harmful. The room froze. Harmful? Hosak repeated. Like, what? The doctor's gaze shifted slightly. We're still analyzing. But this isn't just stress or exhaustion. Jungkook felt something cold settle in his chest. Because suddenly, Jimin's words made sense in a way they hadn't before. Don't let them. His eyes widened slightly. Don't let them what? Don't let them find out? Don't let them get involved? Or worse, don't let them come closer? Are you saying someone did this to him? Tae-young asked, his voice shaking now. The doctor didn't answer directly. We're not ruling anything out. That was enough. Because it meant this wasn't just internal. This wasn't just something Jimin caused himself. This could be something else. Something external. Something dangerous. Jungkook's fists clenched tighter. His mind raced back again faster this time. The nights Jimin disappeared, the way he came back looking worse, the way he avoided questions, the way he looked, scared, not tired, not stressed, scared. And suddenly, a memory hit him harder than the rest. A night Jungkook had almost forgotten. Jimin standing by the door, about to leave. Jungkook asking where he was going. Jimin hesitating, then smiling faintly. Just getting some air. But his eyes didn't match that smile. Jungkook's breathing slowed slightly as the realization settled deeper. You weren't just hiding something, he whispered under his breath. You were protecting us. The others didn't hear him, but Yoongi did, and his gaze sharpened instantly. What did you just say? Jungkook didn't respond, because now everything was starting to connect, and the truth was worse than anything he had imagined. Because if Jimin had been exposed to something harmful over time, and he didn't tell anyone, then there was only one reason why. He didn't want them involved. He didn't want them in danger, which meant whatever this was, wasn't over. And if Jungkook was right, it was already closer than any of them realized. And somewhere inside that hospital room, Jimin was still holding on to that secret. Even now, the word harmful didn't just stay in the room, it followed them. It settled into every glance, every silence, every breath that suddenly felt too careful. No one said it out loud, but the thought was already there, growing fast, twisting into something none of them were ready to face. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. Something had been happening to Jimin, and he had been dealing with it alone. Jungkook stood still, his eyes fixed on the closed doors, but his mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying, rebuilding, reconnecting every moment he had ignored. And now, those moments weren't small anymore. They were warnings. Prolonged exposure, he repeated under his breath, the words tasting bitter. Yoongi caught it instantly. You're thinking the same thing I am, he said quietly. Jungkook didn't look at him. Then say it. Yoongi exhaled slowly. This isn't something that just happens by itself. Silence. That was all it took. Because everyone understood what that meant. Tae-young shook his head, almost violently. No, that doesn't make sense. Why would anyone? We don't know that yet. Namjoon cut in quickly, trying to ground the situation before it spiraled, but even he didn't sound fully convinced. Because the truth was, none of them had an explanation that made sense. Except one. Jungkook finally turned around, and when he did, his expression had changed completely. The confusion was gone. The hesitation too. What replaced it was focus. Cold, sharp, controlled. It's not random, he said. His voice was quiet but steady in a way that made everyone listen. It's targeted. The word landed heavy. Hoseok frowned. Targeted? Jungkook. He told me not to tell you, Jungkook said suddenly. Everything stopped. Every sound, every movement, even breathing felt louder. Yoongi's eyes narrowed slightly. So he did say something. Jungkook nodded slowly. Right before he passed out. Namjoon stepped closer. What exactly did he say? Jungkook hesitated, but only for a second this time. He said, "If something happens to him, don't tell you the truth." The silence that followed was different from before. This wasn't confusion. This was realization. Jin's expression hardened. That means he knew something was going to happen. Or at least, he expected it, Yoongi added. Taehyung looked between them, his voice shaking. Why would he hide that from us? Jungkook didn't answer right away. His gaze drifted slightly, like he was looking at something only he could see. Because it involves us, he said finally. Hoseok blinked. What? Jungkook's jaw tightened. Whatever he's been dealing with, it's not just about him. The weight of that statement hit instantly. Because if that was true, then none of them were safe. We need more information, Namjoon said firmly, stepping into leader mode despite the tension. We can't jump to conclusions. I'm not jumping, Jungkook replied. I'm catching up. Yoongi let out a quiet breath, almost like a dry laugh. Then you're already ahead of the rest of us. Jungkook didn't respond. Because he didn't feel ahead. He felt late. Too late. Another door opened down the hall, but it wasn't for them. Still, every head turned instinctively. Every movement now felt like it could be the one that changed everything. Minutes stretched again. But this time, they weren't just waiting. They were thinking, watching, connecting. And slowly, the pieces started forming a pattern. The late nights, Jin said suddenly. He always left at the same time. Namjoon nodded. Around midnight, Yoongi added. And he came back around 3 or 4 in the morning. Taehyung's eyes widened. That's not random. Hoseok leaned against the wall, his arms crossing tightly. That's a schedule. Jungkook's eyes darkened. Because that word, schedule, confirmed something deeper. This wasn't accidental exposure. This was repeated, intentional, controlled. He was meeting someone, Jungkook said. The words came out flat. Certain. Everyone looked at him. You don't know that, Namjoon said carefully. Jungkook finally met his gaze. I do. Silence. Because I followed him once. That changed everything again. Taehyung stepped closer immediately. What? Jungkook's expression didn't shift. A few weeks ago, he left the dorm late, said he needed air. I didn't believe him. Yoongi's eyes sharpened. So you followed? Jungkook nodded. But I lost him. Hoseok frowned. Lost him? How? He knew the area better than I expected, Jungkook replied. Or, he was used to being followed. That detail didn't sit right with anyone. Namjoon's voice dropped slightly. Used to being followed? Jungkook didn't answer directly. Instead, he looked back at the emergency room doors. I thought he was just avoiding me, he said quietly. But now, I think he was protecting me. The realization hit differently this time. Because it wasn't just about Jimin hiding something. It was about Jimin choosing to face it alone. On purpose. That means whoever he was meeting, Yoongi started, is the source? Jungkook finished. No one argued with that. Because it made too much sense. And that was the problem. Because if there was someone behind this, then the situation wasn't contained. It wasn't over. It was still moving, still active, still dangerous. Taehyung ran a hand through his hair again, his voice barely steady. So what do we do? Jungkook didn't hesitate this time. We find them. The room went still again. Because the way he said it wasn't a suggestion. It was a decision. Namjoon stepped forward immediately. Jungkook, wait. We don't even know who they are. Jungkook's gaze didn't waver. Then we start with where he went. Yoongi nodded slightly. The place you lost him. Jungkook nodded back. Hoseok looked between them, uneasy. You're talking about going out there? Now? Not now, Jungkook said. But soon. Jin crossed his arms, his expression serious. We're not doing anything reckless. Jungkook didn't argue, but he didn't agree either. Because in his mind, this wasn't reckless. This was necessary. Because Jimin was lying in that room right now, because of something none of them understood. And if they didn't act, Whatever caused it might come back. The doors opened again, and this time, the doctor's expression told them everything had just gotten worse. The doctor didn't rush this time. That alone was enough to make everything worse, because urgency meant action, but this hesitation meant uncertainty, and uncertainty meant danger. "What is it?" Namjoon asked, his voice firm but edged with tension. The doctor glanced at all of them, like he was measuring how much to say. Then he exhaled slowly. "We found traces in his blood." The words dropped heavy. Jungkook's chest tightened instantly. "Traces of what?" Jin asked. The doctor didn't answer right away. "A substance?" he said carefully. "Not something common. Not something you'd normally find unless there's repeated exposure." Silence slammed into the group again. Hosok's voice came out barely steady. "Are you saying he was poisoned?" The word felt too extreme, too unreal, but no one laughed. No one denied it. The doctor shook his head slightly. "We can't confirm that yet. But whatever it is, it's been affecting his system over time." Yoongi's eyes darkened. "That lines up with what we've been seeing." Jungkook didn't move, didn't speak, but inside, everything was shifting fast. Because this confirmed it. Jimin wasn't just hiding stress. He wasn't just overworking himself. Someone or something had been slowly breaking him down. "Can you identify it?" Namjoon asked. The doctor nodded slightly. "We've sent samples for deeper analysis. But there's something else." The way he said that made Jungkook's stomach drop again. "What else?" Taeyoung asked quietly. The doctor hesitated, then showed them the tablet. "There are signs that his body has been building a resistance." "That didn't make sense. Not at first," Jin frowned. "Resistance?" The doctor nodded. "Whatever he's been exposed to, it didn't affect him all at once. It built up, which means..." He paused. "His body has been fighting it for a while." The realization hit slowly but hard. Yoongi said it first. He knew. No one argued. Because now, it was obvious. Jimin didn't just accidentally get exposed. He stayed exposed. Repeatedly. And if his body was adapting, then that meant one thing. "He kept going back," Jungkook said quietly. The doctor looked at him. "That's one possibility." But Jungkook shook his head. "No, it's not a possibility." His voice hardened. "It's the truth." Silence again, because it made sense. Too much sense. Taeyoung's eyes widened. Why would he do that? Jungkook didn't answer right away. Because the answer wasn't simple. It wasn't logical. It was something else. Something deeper. "Because he had to," Jungkook said finally. Hosok frowned. "Had to? For what?" Jungkook's gaze shifted slightly. Distant. Focused. "To protect us." That word again. Protect. It didn't feel like a guess anymore. It felt like a rule. A pattern. A decision Jimin made over and over again, without telling anyone. "We need to know where he was going," Yoongi said, cutting through the silence. Jungkook nodded immediately. "I know the general area." Namjoon turned to him. "Then we go together." But Jungkook shook his head. "No, that word came out fast." Too fast. Everyone looked at him. "What do you mean no?" Jin asked. Jungkook's expression was firm. "If this is what I think it is, we can't all go." "Why not?" Hosok pressed. Jungkook didn't hesitate, because that's exactly what Jimin didn't want. Silence. That stopped them, because it connected directly to Jimin's last words. "Don't tell them the truth." Yoongi crossed his arms. "You're planning to go alone." It wasn't a question. Jungkook didn't deny it. "I'm the only one who knows what to look for." Namjoon stepped forward immediately. "That's not happening." Jungkook met his gaze. "You can't stop me." The tension spiked instantly again. "This isn't just about you," Namjoon said firmly. "It never was." Jungkook's jaw tightened. Exactly. That response didn't help. It made things worse. Taehyung stepped in quickly. "Stop, both of you." His voice shook, but it was enough to pause them. "We're all thinking the same thing," he continued, "but we don't even know what we're dealing with yet." Yoongi nodded slightly. which means we need rules. That word changed the direction instantly. Jungkook looked at him. Rules? Yoongi stepped forward. Calm. Controlled. If we're dealing with something dangerous, we don't rush in blindly. He glanced at the others. We gather information first. We move carefully. Hoseok exhaled slightly. That makes sense. Jin nodded. No one goes alone. Jungkook didn't agree. But he didn't interrupt either. Yoongi continued, his tone steady. Second rule, we don't trust anything at face value, Namjoon added. And third, we don't split up unless we absolutely have to. The group slowly fell into a rhythm again, not calm, but controlled, focused. But Jungkook was already thinking ahead, because in his mind, there was one rule that mattered more than anything else. Find the source before it finds them again. There's one more rule, Jungkook said suddenly. Everyone looked at him. His expression didn't change. We don't tell anyone else about this. Silence. Jin frowned. You mean management? Jungkook nodded. For now. Namjoon hesitated. That's risky. So is waiting, Jungkook replied instantly. Yoongi watched him carefully, then nodded once. He's right. That settled it. Because if Yoongi agreed, the others followed. Not comfortably, but they did. The rules were set. The direction was clear. But before anyone could move forward, the doctor spoke again. There's something else you need to know. Every head turned back to him, and the look on his face said, this wasn't over yet. He regained consciousness for a few seconds, the doctor said. Jungkook's heart stopped. What? The doctor continued. He said something. The room went completely still. What did he say? Jungkook asked immediately. The doctor looked directly at him, then spoke slowly. He said, it's too late. Silence. Absolute. Crushing. Because those 3 words changed everything again. And this time, it didn't feel like a warning. It felt like a countdown had already ended. It's too late. The words didn't just land, they echoed, repeating in every mind like something that refused to fade. No one spoke immediately, because no one knew what those words actually meant. Too late for what? Too late to stop something? Too late to save himself? Or worse, too late to protect them? Jungkook felt it differently than the others. For him, those words weren't just a warning. They were confirmation. Confirmation that whatever Jimin had been dealing with had already crossed a line. And now, they were standing on the wrong side of it. Did he say anything else? Jungkook asked, his voice tight but controlled. The doctor shook his head. He lost consciousness again, almost immediately. Silence. Jungkook nodded slowly, but his mind was already moving ahead, faster than before, because now, waiting wasn't an option anymore. We don't have time, he said. Namjoon turned to him. Jungkook. He said it's too late, Jungkook cut in. That means something already happened. Yoongi's gaze sharpened. Or something is about to. That possibility made everything worse. Hoseok rubbed his face, frustration building. We don't even know what we're chasing. We know enough, Jungkook replied. Jin frowned. No, we don't. Jungkook stepped forward slightly, his voice lowering. He was meeting someone, repeatedly. That exposure didn't come from nowhere. Taeyoung shook his head. But we still don't know where exactly. Jungkook's eyes darkened. I do. That got everyone's attention again. You said you lost him, Namjoon reminded him. Jungkook nodded. I did, but not before I saw enough. Silence. Yoongi stepped closer. Then start talking. Jungkook exhaled slowly, like he was deciding how much to reveal. Then finally, it's near the river. The words came out quiet but certain. There's an old warehouse area, abandoned. No cameras, no foot traffic at night. Hoseok frowned. Why would he go there? Jungkook didn't hesitate, because whoever he was meeting didn't want to be seen. That made sense. Too much sense. Namjoon crossed his arms, thinking fast. If that's true, then this isn't random at all. It never was, Yoongi said. Taeyoung looked between them, unease growing. So what are we walking into? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. Because the truth was, he didn't know exactly. But he had a feeling, and that feeling wasn't good. Something controlled, he said finally. Something planned. Jin let out a quiet breath, and Jimin walked into it alone. The weight of that hit hard, because it wasn't just bravery, it wasn't just sacrifice, it was something more dangerous. Jimin had chosen to face it without backup, without telling anyone, without leaving a clear trail, which meant he didn't want them involved at all. "We're breaking his rule," Hoseok said quietly. Jungkook's jaw tightened. "I know." "Then why are we still doing this?" Hoseok pressed. Jungkook looked at him directly. "Because whatever he was protecting us from is already here." Silence. That ended the argument. Because deep down, they all felt it. This wasn't something they could ignore anymore. "We go tonight," Jungkook said. Namjoon immediately shook his head. "No, we plan first." "There's no time," Jungkook replied. "There's always time to not make a mistake," Namjoon countered. The tension rose again, but this time, it didn't explode. Because Yoongi stepped in first. "We compromise," he said calmly. Both of them looked at him. "We go tonight," Yoongi continued, "but we don't rush in." He glanced at Jungkook. "We observe first, then at Namjoon. No direct confrontation unless we understand what we're dealing with." That made sense. Even Jungkook didn't argue. "Fine," he said. Jin nodded slightly. "And we stick together." Jungkook hesitated, then nodded once. Taehyung exhaled quietly, like he was trying to steady himself. "I don't like this." "You don't have to," Yoongi replied. "You just have to be ready." The plan was forming now. Not perfect, not safe, but clear enough to move forward. But before they could finalize anything, Jungkook's phone buzzed. The sound cut through the tension instantly. He froze for half a second before pulling it out. An unknown number. Everyone noticed. "Who is it?" Hoseok asked. Jungkook didn't answer right away. He just stared at the screen. Something about it felt wrong. Like he already knew this wasn't random. Slowly, he answered. "Hello?" Silence. For a second, there was nothing. Then, a voice, distorted, calm. "You shouldn't have brought him here." Jungkook's entire body went still. "Who is this?" he demanded. A soft chuckle came through the line. "You're already too late." The same words. His grip on the phone tightened. "What did you do to him?" Jungkook's voice dropped. "Dangerous now." The voice didn't answer directly. "You're closer than you think." The line went dead. Silence slammed back into the room. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of something else. Fear. Real, undeniable fear. "What was that?" Taehyung asked, his voice barely steady. Jungkook lowered the phone slowly. His expression had changed again. Not shock, not confusion, something else, something sharper. "It's starting," he said. No one needed to ask what he meant, because now, whatever they were dealing with, wasn't hidden anymore. It had just made the first move. The silence after the call wasn't empty, it was suffocating. No one spoke because no one knew where to start. The voice on the phone hadn't just threatened them, it had confirmed everything. This wasn't a guess anymore. This wasn't a theory. Someone was watching. Someone knew exactly what was happening. And worse, they knew Jungkook was involved now. Jungkook slowly lowered the phone, his grip still tight, like he was holding on to the last piece of control he had. His mind wasn't racing anymore. It was locking in, every doubt, every hesitation gone, replaced with something sharper. "They're not hiding anymore," he said quietly. Yoongi nodded once. "No, they're guiding us." That word changed the tone instantly. Taehyung frowned. "Guiding? Why would they do that?" Yoongi's expression didn't shift. "Because they want us to come." The realization hit hard. Hoseok shook his head. "That makes no sense." "Why would anyone want us there?" Jungkook answered before Yoongi could. "Because we're part of it." Silence. That answer didn't comfort anyone. It made everything worse. Jin crossed his arms, his face tense. "Then this isn't just about Jimin anymore." Jungkook looked at him. "It never was." Namjoon stepped forward again, his voice calm but firm, grounding the group before panic could spread further. "We need to slow down." Jungkook didn't agree. But this time, he didn't interrupt. Namjoon continued, "If they're watching us, then rushing in is exactly what they expect." Yoongi nodded slightly. "And exactly what they want." Hoseok exhaled sharply. "So what, we just sit here and wait?" "No," Namjoon replied. "We change the approach." Jungkook's eyes narrowed slightly. "Explain." Namjoon met his gaze. "We don't go in as targets." A pause. "We go in as observers," Yoongi added. "We don't react to them, we force them to react to us." That shift in thinking changed the direction completely, because now it wasn't just about finding answers, it was about control, or at least taking some of it back. "They said we're closer than we think," Taeyoung said quietly. "What does that even mean?" Jungkook's mind moved fast. Too fast. "It means this isn't just one place," he said. "It's a network." Jin frowned. "You're assuming a lot." Jungkook shook his head. "No, I'm connecting what's already there." Yoongi looked at him, interested now. "Go on." Jungkook stepped forward slightly, his voice steady. "Jimin didn't just go to one place randomly. He followed a pattern. Same time, same area." He paused. "That means structure." Namjoon nodded slowly. "And structure means planning." Hoseok's expression shifted. "Which means more than one person." Taeyoung swallowed. "Which means this is bigger than we thought." Silence again. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was clarity. Dangerous clarity. Because now, the scale of the problem was starting to show. And it was bigger than any of them expected. "We're not just looking for someone," Yoongi said quietly. "We're stepping into something already in motion." Jungkook didn't look away. "Then we stop it." The confidence in his voice didn't match the situation, but it didn't need to, because right now, they needed direction more than certainty. "We still follow the rules," Namjoon reminded. Jungkook nodded once. "We observe first," Jin added. "We stay together," Hoseok said. "And we don't engage unless we have to." Taehyung hesitated, then added quietly, "And we don't lose each other." That one landed differently. Because after everything that had just happened, that wasn't just a rule, it was a fear. Jungkook looked at him for a second, then nodded. "We won't." But even as he said it, something in his expression didn't fully agree, because deep down, he already knew this wasn't going to go the way they planned. Because nothing about this situation had been predictable so far, and it wasn't about to start now. "We move in 2 hours, Jungkook said. Namjoon frowned slightly. "Why 2? Jungkook glanced toward the emergency room doors. "Because if Jimin wakes up again, I need to hear it from him." Silence. That made sense. More than anything else, because no matter how much they guessed, Jimin was still the only one who knew the full truth. And if there was even a chance he could speak again, Jungkook wasn't going to miss it. Time passed slower now. Every second felt stretched, heavy with expectation. No one sat down anymore. No one relaxed. They were all standing, waiting, preparing. And then, the monitor inside the room beeped louder. Not steady anymore. Different. Everyone froze. The doors didn't open. No doctor came out. But something had changed. Jungkook moved first. Without thinking, he stepped closer to the doors, his heart pounding harder than before. "Jimin," he muttered under his breath, and for a second, just a second, he felt it. That shift, that moment where everything could go one way, or completely fall apart. Because inside that room, Jimin wasn't just fighting whatever was in his system anymore. He was holding on to something else, something he hadn't said yet, something that might explain everything, or destroy what little they had left. And Jungkook knew, the next time Jimin opened his eyes, there wouldn't be any more secrets left to hide. The sound from inside the room wasn't loud, but it was wrong. Not the steady rhythm they had been clinging to for reassurance. This was uneven, interrupted, like something inside Jimin's body was fighting back harder than before. Jungkook didn't wait for permission. He pushed the door open, "Hey!" one of the nurses started, but stopped when she saw his face. Because this wasn't someone you blocked. This was someone who was already past that point. Jimin lay on the bed, pale under the harsh white lights, his chest rising unevenly, his fingers twitching slightly like he was trying to hold on to something invisible. Machines surrounded him, blinking, tracking, reacting, but they didn't explain what was happening. Jungkook stepped closer slowly, like one wrong move would make everything worse. "Jimin." His voice dropped, softer now, controlled, different from before. This wasn't anger anymore. This wasn't pressure. This was fear, real, quiet fear. Jimin's eyes fluttered, not fully open, not fully closed, somewhere in between. Fighting. "He's semi-conscious," the doctor said quickly from behind them. "If he responds, keep it short." Jungkook didn't even acknowledge him. He was already leaning closer. "Jimin, it's me." A pause. Then, barely, Jimin's fingers moved again. This time, toward Jungkook. That was enough. Jungkook immediately took his hand, tight, like he was anchoring him. "I'm here," he said. "You're not alone." Jimin's lips parted slightly. No sound at first, just breath. Then, "You shouldn't be." His voice cracked, barely there. Jungkook shook his head instantly. Too late for that. Jimin's brows furrowed weakly, like even that response was frustrating to him. "They'll see?" The words were broken, incomplete, but clear enough. Jungkook's eyes darkened. "They already do." That changed something, because Jimin's expression shifted slightly. Not surprise, not fear. Something else. Something closer to resignation, like he had expected that answer. "Just not this soon." "Listen to me," Jungkook said, leaning closer. "We're going to that place." Jimin's reaction was immediate. His hand tightened weakly around Jungkook's. No. It came out stronger than anything else he had said. That alone was enough to confirm everything. Jungkook didn't pull back. "You don't get to say no anymore." Jimin's breathing hitched again. "You don't understand." "Then explain it," Jungkook shot back. No hesitation this time, no patience left, because this wasn't about protecting feelings anymore. This was about survival. Jimin's eyes opened a little more. Still unfocused, still weak. But there was something behind them now, something clear. "It's not one person." Silence. That was the first real answer. Jungkook's grip tightened. "How many?" Jimin shook his head slightly. "Doesn't matter." His voice dropped again. "They don't show themselves all at once." Jungkook felt it then. That cold realization spreading again. "A system," he muttered. Jimin didn't respond, but the slight shift in his expression confirmed it. That was the truth. And it was worse than they thought. "Why you?" Jungkook asked next. "Why did they choose you?" That question hit harder, because Jimin didn't answer immediately. His gaze drifted slightly, like he was debating something internally. Like this was the line he wasn't supposed to cross. Jungkook saw it. "Jimin," his voice dropped. "Look at me!" Slowly, Jimin did. And whatever was in his eyes this time wasn't fear. It was guilt. "I wasn't chosen," he whispered. Jungkook frowned. "Then what?" Jimin's lips trembled slightly. "I went to them first. Everything stopped. Completely. The air. The sound. Jungkook's thoughts." "What?" The word came out sharp, disbelieving. Jimin's breathing grew uneven again. "I needed something," his voice cracked. "And they had it." That didn't make sense. Not yet. But it was enough to break the entire assumption they had been building. This wasn't something forced onto Jimin. This wasn't just him being targeted. He had walked into it, on his own. "What did you need?" Jungkook asked, his voice lower now but more dangerous. Jimin didn't answer right away. His eyes closed briefly, like even thinking about it was exhausting. "Time," he whispered. Jungkook froze. "What?" Jimin's fingers tightened weakly again. "More time." The words didn't make sense, not fully, but the emotion behind them did. Because this wasn't a casual decision. This wasn't curiosity. This was desperation. For what? Jungkook pressed. Jimin's lips parted again. But this time, the answer didn't come easily, because whatever he was about to say was the real truth. The one he had been hiding from all of them. The one he didn't want anyone to know. His voice dropped to almost nothing. For you. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. Because that answer changed everything. Jungkook's entire body went still. His mind couldn't catch up fast enough. What are you talking about? He demanded. Jimin's eyes flickered again. You were pushing too hard, doing too much. You weren't stopping. His voice broke again. I thought, if I could fix it, before it got worse. Jungkook shook his head immediately. Fix what? But deep down, he already knew this wasn't going to be something simple. Jimin's breathing hitched again. His grip weakened slightly. There was something wrong, and I couldn't tell you. The words came out fragmented, but they were enough to crack everything open. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about Jimin hiding something from them. It was about Jimin hiding something from Jungkook specifically. Something he thought Jungkook couldn't handle. Something dangerous enough to make him go to people he didn't trust. So you made a deal, Jungkook said slowly. Jimin didn't deny it. I thought I could control it. His voice faded again. I was wrong. The machines beeped louder again. The doctor stepped forward slightly. That's enough. But Jungkook didn't move. What did they give you? He demanded. Jimin's eyes opened one more time, just enough to meet Jungkook's. And this time, there was no hesitation left. No more holding back. A way to take it instead of you. Silence. Total. Final. Because that answer didn't just reveal the truth, it twisted it. Completely. This wasn't just about Jimin being in danger. This was about him choosing to take something onto himself. Something that was meant for Jungkook. And whatever that something was, it hadn't stopped. It had just moved. And now, it was breaking him. And Jungkook was standing there realizing that the entire time, the target might never have been Jimin at all. The words didn't just echo, they shattered whatever version of reality Jungkook had been holding on to. A way to take it instead of you. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That wasn't confusion. That was a choice. Jimin's choice. And it changed everything. Jungkook's grip on Jimin's hand tightened, but not out of comfort anymore, out of something closer to disbelief, anger, and something much deeper that he couldn't name yet. What did you take? Jungkook asked, his voice low, dangerously steady. Jimin's breathing was uneven now, every word costing him more than the last. Not something you can see, he whispered. It's layered? Jungkook frowned, trying to process it. Layered? What does that even mean? Jimin's eyes flickered again, struggling to stay open. It doesn't hit all at once. It builds, slowly. The doctor stepped closer, clearly ready to intervene, but stopped when he saw how focused Jungkook was, how close they were to something important. What was it meant to do to me? Jungkook pressed. Jimin hesitated. And that hesitation was enough to confirm the worst part. Because whatever it wasn't small. It wasn't harmless. It was something serious enough that Jimin had chosen to carry it instead. It would have broken you, Jimin said finally. The words came out barely audible, but they hit harder than anything else so far. Jungkook's jaw tightened instantly. So, you decided to let it break you instead? No answer. Because Jimin didn't need to say yes. It was already written all over him. Jungkook let out a short, sharp breath, his frustration breaking through again. You think that makes sense? Jimin's lips moved slightly. You wouldn't have stopped. That stopped Jungkook. Completely. Because it was true. Deep down he knew it. If Jimin had told him something was targeting him, something dangerous, Jungkook wouldn't have backed away. He would have pushed harder, gone deeper, taken bigger risks, and maybe that's exactly what Jimin was trying to prevent. So you made the decision for me, Jungkook said quietly. Jimin didn't deny it. Again, the silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they hadn't said to each other before. Everything they avoided. Everything they hid behind arguments and distance. What is it? Jungkook asked again, softer this time but more intense. What exactly are we dealing with? Jimin's breathing grew heavier. His body wasn't holding up as well anymore, but he still forced the words out. It's not just a substance. That changed the direction instantly. Jungkook leaned closer. Then what? Jimin swallowed weakly. It's a trigger. The word landed differently, more dangerous, because it meant this wasn't just about exposure. This was about activation. Trigger for what? Jungkook demanded. Jimin's eyes closed briefly, like even thinking about it was pulling him deeper into exhaustion. Behavior, he whispered. Jungkook froze. What? Jimin's voice broke again. It changes how you react, how you think. It pushes you. He struggled for the right word. Toward extremes. Silence. The implications hit instantly. This wasn't something physical alone. This was psychological, controlled, directed. They were trying to manipulate me, Jungkook said slowly. Jimin didn't respond, but that was answer enough. Jungkook's grip tightened again. Why me? This time, Jimin answered faster. Because you don't stop. The words were weak, but clear. You push, harder than anyone. They needed that. Jungkook's expression darkened. Because that made sense. Too much sense. If someone wanted to create chaos, someone like Jungkook would be the perfect target. Driven, emotional, unpredictable under pressure. So they tried to turn me into something else? Jungkook said quietly. Jimin's fingers twitched slightly in his hand, and you walked into it instead. Silence. That was the truth. Raw, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. How long? Jungkook asked. Jimin's breathing stuttered slightly. Months. Months. Not days. Not weeks. Months. That meant everything they thought was normal, everything they ignored, had been part of this the entire time. Jungkook felt something shift inside him. Not just anger, not just guilt. Something deeper, something colder. You let this happen for months, he said. Jimin's eyes opened slightly again. I thought I could end it. His voice cracked. Before it reached you. Jungkook shook his head slowly. You should have told me. Jimin didn't argue. Because he couldn't. And because maybe he knew that now. It was true. But it didn't change anything. Not anymore. The damage was already done. Where are they? Jungkook asked suddenly. The question came out sharp. Focused, final, Jimin hesitated again. And that hesitation was different from before. This wasn't about hiding anymore. This was about fear. Real fear. You can't go there, Jimin whispered. Jungkook didn't move. Where? Jimin's breathing became uneven again, his body clearly reaching its limit. They're not always there, he said. They move. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Then where do they start? Jimin's gaze shifted slightly, like he was looking past Jungkook, past the room, somewhere else entirely. Under the bridge, he whispered. That was it. That was the location, the first real, concrete piece of truth. And it hit Jungkook like a switch flipping. Because now, this wasn't abstract anymore. This wasn't just theory. This was a place, a direction, a target. The doctor stepped in immediately. That's enough, he needs rest. But Jungkook didn't let go. Not yet. Jimin, he said quickly. Jimin's eyes were already closing again, fading. If I go there, what am I walking into? For a second, it looked like Jimin wouldn't answer, like he didn't have the strength left. But then barely his lips moved one last time. A trap. The word barely existed, but it was enough. And then, his hand went slack. The machine steadied again, but Jimin was gone. Not gone completely, but unconscious again. Out of reach. Jungkook stayed there for a second longer, still holding his hand, still processing everything that had just been said. And then, slowly, he stood up. His expression had changed again. Not confusion, Not hesitation. Not even anger anymore. Something else. Something sharper. Something final. Because now, he knew the truth. And the truth was simple. This wasn't just something Jimin got caught in. This was something designed, planned, and meant for him. And if that was the case, then going to that place wasn't just a choice anymore. It was inevitable. The word trap didn't feel like a warning, it felt like an invitation. And that was the most dangerous part of all. Jungkook stood there for a few seconds after Jimin went still again, his hand slowly loosening its grip as the reality settled deeper into his bones. This wasn't something he could walk away from. Not anymore. Not after what Jimin had just revealed. Not after realizing that everything that had happened was never supposed to happen to Jimin in the first place. It was meant for him, Jungkook. Namjoon's voice came from behind him, calm but firm. "We need to talk." Jungkook didn't turn immediately. His eyes stayed on Jimin for one last second before he finally stepped back. Then he walked out of the room without a word. The others followed. The door closed behind them with a quiet click, but it sounded louder than anything else, because now there was no going back. The hallway felt colder than before, or maybe it was just them. The atmosphere had shifted completely. The uncertainty was gone, replaced with something more dangerous. Direction. "Tell us everything," Yoongi said the moment they stopped. Jungkook didn't hesitate this time. He repeated everything. Every word Jimin managed to say. The deal. The trigger. The fact that it was meant for him. And most importantly, the location, under the bridge. When he finished, no one spoke immediately, because there was too much to process. Too many pieces suddenly fitting together in ways that didn't feel right. So this entire time, Hoseok ran a hand through his hair, his voice tight. "Jimin was carrying something that was meant to control you?" Jungkook nodded once. Jin's expression hardened. "And we didn't notice anything." Yoongi exhaled slowly. "No, we noticed. We just didn't understand." Taehyung leaned back against the wall, his eyes distant. "He was protecting us, even from ourselves." That hit differently, because it was true, and it made everything heavier. "This changes the rules," Namjoon said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. His expression wasn't just serious now, it was decisive. "We're not walking into this blind." Jungkook crossed his arms slightly. "We never were." "No," Namjoon replied, his voice sharper now. "Before we were chasing answers. Now we know what we're dealing with." He stepped closer. "This isn't just about finding someone. This is about stopping something that was designed to manipulate behavior. Silence. Because that made it real in a different way. More calculated. More dangerous. And if it was meant for Jungkook," Jin added slowly, "then going there could activate it again. That was the risk. The real one." Jungkook didn't look away. "Then I'll control it." Yoongi raised an eyebrow slightly. "You're assuming you can?" Jungkook met his gaze. "I don't have a choice." That answer didn't reassure anyone, because it wasn't confidence. It was inevitability. Taehyung stepped forward, his voice quieter now. "What if that's exactly what they want?" Jungkook didn't respond, because he had already thought about that. And the answer didn't change anything. "It is," Yoongi said for him. "They want you there. They want you exposed to it directly." Hoseok exhaled sharply. "So we're walking straight into their plan." Namjoon shook his head. "No, we're stepping into it, knowing it's a plan." That distinction mattered, even if it didn't make it safer. "We still go tonight," Jungkook said. "No hesitation, no doubt." Jin looked at him. "After what we just heard, you still think that's the right move?" Jungkook didn't flinch. "It's the only move." Silence. Because deep down, they all knew it. Waiting wouldn't stop anything. It would only give whoever was behind this more time, more control, more chances. "Then, we adjust," Namjoon said. He looked at each of them. "We don't just observe anymore." Yoongi nodded slightly. "We prepare for contact." Hoseok frowned. "Contact as in confrontation?" Yoongi didn't answer directly. "As in, whatever happens next." Taehyung swallowed, his hands tightening slightly at his sides. "This is getting out of control." Jungkook shook his head slowly. "No." His voice dropped. This is exactly what they planned. That realization didn't calm anyone. It made everything sharper. Because now, every move they made felt like it was already anticipated. Then we stop reacting, Jin said. We make them react. Namjoon nodded. Agreed. He looked at Jungkook. But you don't go in alone. Not under any circumstances. Jungkook hesitated for a split second, then nodded. Fine. It wasn't full agreement, but it was enough. We leave in 1 hour, Namjoon continued. We gather what we need. No unnecessary risks. Hosak exhaled slowly. This is really happening. No one corrected him. Because it was. And there was no turning back now. As they started to move, preparing, planning, thinking ahead, Jungkook stayed still for a second longer. His eyes drifted back to the closed door behind him, to Jimin, lying there, unconscious, carrying something that was never meant for him. You should have trusted me, Jungkook whispered under his breath. But even as he said it, he knew the truth was more complicated than that. Because if their roles were reversed, would he have done anything differently? Probably not. And that was the part that hurt the most. Jungkook turned away finally, his expression set, focused, final. Because now, this wasn't just about finding answers. This was about finishing something Jimin had started, and making sure it didn't destroy them in the process. Because somewhere under that bridge, a trap was waiting. And this time, Jungkook was walking into it on purpose. The city looked normal from the outside. Lights on, cars passing, people moving like nothing had changed. But for them, everything had already shifted. The ride was quiet. Too quiet. No one played music. No one checked their phones. Every second felt like it was leading somewhere they couldn't come back from. Jungkook sat by the window, his gaze fixed on the passing streets. But he wasn't really seeing any of it. His mind was locked on one place, under the bridge. The location repeated in his head like coordinates, like a destination he had already accepted long before this moment. Namjoon sat in the front, occasionally glancing at the rearview mirror, checking everyone without saying anything. Jin sat beside him, arms crossed, jaw tight, thinking through every possible outcome. In the back, Yoongi was still, almost too still, his eyes half-lidded but sharp, calculating angles no one else was seeing yet. Hosak shifted in his seat more than once, unable to settle, while Taehyung stared out the opposite window, his reflection faint in the glass, his expression unreadable, but heavy. No one said it out loud, but they all felt it. This wasn't just another situation. This was a line, and they were about to cross it. The car slowed, then stopped. "We're here," Namjoon said quietly. No one moved immediately, because stepping out meant committing, fully. Finally, Jungkook opened the door. Cold air hit instantly. The sound of water moving under the bridge echoed faintly, mixing with the distant hum of the city above. It felt isolated, cut off, exactly the kind of place where something like this could exist unnoticed. One by one, they stepped out. The ground was uneven, scattered with gravel and debris, shadows stretching long under the weak streetlights. Jungkook didn't wait. He started walking, straight toward the darker area beneath the bridge. "Jungkook," Namjoon called quietly. "We stick together." Jungkook slowed just enough for them to catch up, but he didn't stop. They moved as a group now, tighter than before, every step careful but deliberate. The deeper they went, the quieter it got. Even the sound of the water seemed to fade slightly, like something else was taking its place, something heavier. "Do you feel that?" Taehyung whispered. No one answered. Because they did. It wasn't something you could see, but it was there. A pressure, subtle, but real. Jungkook's jaw tightened. "Stay focused," he said. His voice cut through the tension just enough to keep everyone grounded. They moved further in. Then Jungkook stopped, abruptly. The others almost ran into him. "What is it?" Jin asked quietly. Jungkook didn't answer right away. He was staring ahead, at something in the distance. A faint light. Too dim to be a streetlight. Too steady to be random. "There," he said. Yoongi's gaze followed instantly. Not alone. That changed everything. Because now, this wasn't just a location. It was active. Someone was there. "We observe," Namjoon reminded, his voice low. Jungkook nodded, but his eyes didn't leave the light. They moved closer, slowly, quietly. Each step measured, controlled. The light grew clearer, and with it, shapes, figures. At least two, maybe more, standing near what looked like an old structure metal. Rusted, barely holding together. "They're waiting," Hosak whispered. Because it didn't look random. It looked intentional, like they knew someone was coming. Jungkook felt it again. That pull, not physical, not visible, but something inside him reacted. Subtle, but undeniable. His breathing shifted slightly. His focus sharpened too quickly. "Jungkook," Yoongi said quietly. "Stay with us." Jungkook didn't respond. Because something was changing. Just slightly. But enough. The closer they got, the stronger it felt. That pressure. That invisible weight pressing against his thoughts. "This is it," Jungkook muttered. The others heard it, but it didn't sound like him. Not fully. They stopped just before stepping fully into the light. Close enough to see clearly now. Two figures. Faces obscured. Standing still, waiting. One of them tilted their head slightly, like they recognized him. "You came faster than expected," a voice said. Calm, familiar, distorted but not entirely. Jungkook stepped forward. Just one step. "You've been expecting me." The figure didn't deny it. "Of course." A pause. Then, "You were always going to come." That was the confirmation. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't chance. This was planned. From the beginning. "You targeted him to get to me," Jungkook said. His voice was steady, but something underneath it was shifting. The figure let out a quiet breath, almost like amusement. "No," they replied. "He came to us." That truth again. Twisted. Uncomfortable. "And you let him," Jungkook shot back. "We gave him a choice," the voice said. "Just like we're giving you now." Silence. The group tensed instantly. Because that word choice didn't sound like an option. It sounded like a trap closing. "What choice?" Namjoon asked, stepping forward slightly. The second figure moved for the first time. Subtle. Controlled. "Stay out of this," they said calmly. "This isn't about you." "It is now," Jin replied sharply. The first figure shifted their attention back to Jungkook. "You know what we can do," they said. "You've already felt it." Jungkook's fists clenched slightly, because they weren't wrong. He had felt it. Even now, it was there. Subtle, but growing. "And you know what happens if you walk away," the voice continued. A pause. "He doesn't recover." That hit. Hard. Hosiak stepped forward immediately. "You don't get to use him like that." "We already did," the figure interrupted. Calm. Cold. Final. Silence. Taehyung's hand tightened at his side. Yoongi's gaze sharpened further. Namjoon's expression hardened. But Jungkook didn't move. Because this was the moment everything had been leading to. The real choice. Not about going there, not about facing them, but about what came next. And deep down, he already knew. Because Jimin had made his choice months ago. And now, it was his turn. "What do you want from me?" Jungkook asked. The figure stepped forward slightly, into the light just enough to show a faint outline but still no face. "Simple," they said. "Take it back." Silence, because that was it. The twist. The full circle. This wasn't about stopping anything. It was about transferring it. Again. Back to where it was originally meant to go. Back to Jungkook. "And if I don't?" Jungkook asked quietly. The answer came instantly. "Then he keeps breaking." The words didn't echo. They didn't need to, because they hit exactly where they were meant to. And for the first time since arriving, Jungkook hesitated. Jungkook didn't answer right away. Not because he didn't know what to say, but because for the first time since all of this started, he actually stopped to think about the cost. Not just for him, but for Jimin. Because this wasn't a threat anymore. It wasn't a guess. It was a guarantee. If he walked away, Jimin would keep suffering, slowly, repeatedly, until there was nothing left to fight with. And that was something Jungkook couldn't accept. "You don't get to decide that," Namjoon said firmly, stepping forward. His voice cut through the tension like a barrier, trying to pull Jungkook back before he crossed a line he couldn't return from. But Jungkook didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on the figure in front of him. "What exactly happens if I take it?" Jungkook asked. The figure tilted their head slightly, like they had been waiting for that question. "It transfers," they said simply. "From him to you? That's it?" Yoongi asked, his tone sharp. "You expect us to believe it's that simple?" The second figure let out a quiet breath, almost like amusement. "Nothing about this is simple." That answer didn't help, but it was honest, and that made it worse. "What are the side effects?" Jin pressed. The first figure didn't respond immediately this time. A pause. Then, "You'll feel it." Jungkook's eyes narrowed slightly. "Feel what?" Another pause. Everything he's been holding back. Silence. Because that answer was heavier than anything else they could have said. This wasn't just a physical transfer. This was emotional, psychological, accumulative. Months of pressure, pain, distortion, all moving at once, into one person, Jungkook. Hoseok shook his head immediately. "No, absolutely not. That's not happening." Taeyoung stepped closer too, his voice tight. "We'll find another way." But Jungkook didn't move, didn't look away. Because deep down, he already knew. There wasn't another way. Not one that worked in time. "You don't have time to look for alternatives," the figure said calmly, like they could hear the thought forming. "His system is already unstable." Jungkook's jaw tightened. "You did that." "No," the figure replied instantly. "He chose to carry it longer than he should have." That truth again. Always twisted just enough to hurt more. Namjoon stepped in front of Jungkook now, blocking his line of sight. "We're done here," he said firmly. "We're not making any deals." But Jungkook stepped around him. "Move." The word was quiet, but it wasn't a request. Namjoon didn't move at first. "Jungkook, move," Jungkook repeated. This time, there was something in his voice that made everyone pause, because this wasn't stubbornness anymore. This was decision. Final. Yoongi watched him carefully, then said quietly, "You've already made up your mind." Jungkook didn't deny it. Silence spread through the group again, but this time, it wasn't confusion. It was resistance. Because none of them wanted this. None of them agreed with it. But they could see it in Jungkook's eyes. He wasn't backing down. "You don't get to do this alone," Taeyoung said suddenly. His voice shook, but he didn't step back. "You think Jimin wanted that?" That hit, but not enough to stop him. "This isn't about what he wanted," Jungkook replied. "It's about what he did." Hoseok stepped forward next. "And you think repeating it is the solution?" Jungkook finally looked at him. "No." A pause. "But it's the only way to end it." Silence. Because that answer wasn't comforting. It was final. Jin exhaled slowly, his expression tightening. "Then we stay with you." Jungkook shook his head. "You can't." "Watch us," Jin shot back. But the figure interrupted. "They can stay," they said calmly. "It won't matter." That made everyone freeze again, because the confidence in that statement was absolute. "Why not?" Yoongi asked. The second figure stepped slightly closer, their voice low. "Because this part only affects him." Jungkook didn't react. But the others did, because that meant whatever was about to happen couldn't be shared, couldn't be split, couldn't be stopped once it started. "Then we stop it before it starts," Namjoon said firmly. But Jungkook stepped forward again, closing the distance. "How do we do it?" he asked. The figure didn't hesitate this time. "You step into range," they said, "and you accept it." That was it. No ritual, no device. Just proximity. Just intention. Just choice. Jungkook nodded once. like it made sense, like it was simple. Jungkook, no. Taehyung reached for him, but Jungkook pulled away. Not aggressively, just enough. Stay back. His voice wasn't harsh, but it wasn't soft either. It was controlled, focused, and completely locked in. You don't have to do this, Hoseok said again. Jungkook didn't look at him. Yes, I do. And that was the truth, not because anyone forced him, not because he didn't have options, but because he had already decided what mattered more, Jimin or himself. And for Jungkook, that was never a real choice. He took one more step forward. The air felt different immediately. He could feel it, stronger now. That pressure, that invisible pull. It wasn't subtle anymore. It was real, active, waiting. The figure raised a hand slightly. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. Jungkook nodded. Good. That response made even Yoongi tense slightly, because it didn't sound like fear. It sounded like readiness. Jungkook, Namjoon said one last time, but Jungkook didn't turn, didn't respond, because he was already there, right at the edge of whatever this was. And then he stepped in. The reaction was immediate, not visible, but undeniable. His body tensed slightly, his breath caught, his eyes sharpened too quickly. Jungkook? Taehyung's voice broke slightly. But Jungkook didn't answer, because something had already started, and it wasn't slow, it wasn't gradual. It hit all at once. Every layer Jimin had described, every buildup, every suppressed reaction, every distorted push, it slammed into him. And for a split second, Jungkook didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't react. Then his hand clenched into a fist, and his entire expression changed. Not into pain, not into fear, but into something far more dangerous. Control, slipping. And for the first time since this began, the others realized this might not end the way they thought. It didn't look dramatic at first. That was what made it terrifying. Jungkook was still standing, still breathing. No visible collapse, no scream, no sudden fall. But something had changed, and everyone felt it immediately. The air around him felt heavier, charged. Like the pressure they had been sensing before had suddenly focused into one point. Into him, Jungkook. Taehyung's voice came out quieter now, uncertain. Jungkook didn't respond. His head was slightly lowered, his shoulders tense, his breathing shallow but controlled in a way that didn't feel natural, like he was forcing it to stay steady, forcing himself to stay in control. Say something, Hoseok added, stepping forward instinctively. Yoongi moved fast, grabbing his arm before he got too close. Wait? That one word stopped him, because Yoongi wasn't panicking, and that meant something was wrong. Jungkook slowly lifted his head, and when he did, his eyes were different. Not completely unrecognizable, but sharper, colder, like something had been stripped away, or maybe something had been added. It's louder than I thought, Jungkook said quietly. His voice was calm but layered, like there was something underneath it, pushing through. Namjoon stepped closer, careful. What do you mean? Jungkook didn't look at him. His gaze stayed forward, fixed on nothing and everything at the same time. The pull, he said. The pressure. It's constant. His hand tightened again, fingers curling slightly like he was testing his own control. It doesn't stop. Silence. Because that confirmed it. Whatever this was, it wasn't just inside him. It was active, ongoing. Can you handle it? Jin asked, his voice lower than usual. Jungkook let out a short breath. Not quite a laugh. Not quite anything. I have to. That wasn't confidence. That was reality. Taehyung took a step closer despite Yoongi's earlier warning. Jungkook, look at me. For a second, Jungkook didn't react. Then slowly he turned, and when their eyes met, Taehyung froze. Because there was something there that hadn't been there before. Something unstable. Not out of control yet, but close enough to see the edge. It's trying to push me, Jungkook said. Toward what? Taehyung asked, barely steady. Jungkook's gaze flickered slightly. Everything. That answer didn't make sense at first. But then it did. Because if this was a trigger, then it wasn't guiding him to one specific action. It was amplifying everything inside him, every impulse, every reaction, every extreme. Yoongi stepped forward slightly, his voice calm but sharp. "You need to focus." Jungkook didn't argue. "I am." But the way he said it didn't feel stable. It felt forced, like focusing was already becoming harder. "Then listen," Yoongi continued. "You don't react. You observe. You control the timing." Jungkook nodded once. "Control," he repeated quietly, like he was anchoring himself to that word. But even as he said it, his breathing shifted again. Slightly faster now, slightly uneven. Namjoon saw it immediately. "We need to get him out of here." The figure's voice cut in before anyone could move. Too late for that. Everyone turned instantly. The two figures hadn't moved much, but their presence felt stronger now, more certain. "It's already integrated," the first one said calmly. "Removing him now won't stop it." Hosok's jaw tightened. "Then what will?" The second figure answered this time. "Time." That wasn't an answer. That was a delay, and everyone knew it. "You said this would transfer," Jin said sharply. "Not take over." The figure tilted their head slightly. "We never said it wouldn't evolve." That word hit wrong. Evolve. This wasn't just something static. It was adaptive, changing, growing based on the person carrying it. "Jungkook, you used him as a test," Yoongi said quietly. The figure didn't deny it. Silence fell again, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was anger. Real, focused anger. Namjoon stepped forward, his voice cold now. "We're done talking." But before he could move, Jungkook spoke again. "No." That one word stopped everything. Everyone looked at him. His posture had shifted slightly. More rigid, more controlled, but also more tense. Like every part of him was being held together manually. "They're right," Jungkook said. His voice was steady, but there was strain under it now. "Running won't stop it." Taehyung shook his head immediately. "Then we find another way." "There isn't one," Jungkook cut in. "Not harsh, just final. Silence." Because deep down, they all knew that might be true. "So, what do we do?" Hosiak asked, his voice tight. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His eyes drifted again, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. Then slowly he spoke. "We end it here." The words were simple, but the meaning behind them wasn't. Yoongi's gaze sharpened. "Define, end it." Jungkook looked back at the figures. His expression had changed again. Less unstable now, more focused, but in a way that felt dangerous. "We shut it down at the source." The figure let out a quiet breath, almost impressed. "You think you can do that?" Jungkook didn't hesitate. "I know I can." That confidence wasn't normal. Not in this situation, and that's what made it worse. Because it didn't feel like Jungkook talking anymore. It felt like something else, aligning with him, using him, amplifying him. Taehyung saw it. "Jungkook," his voice dropped. "That's not you." Jungkook's gaze flickered again. For a second, just a second, something softer broke through. Something real. "I know," he said quietly. And then it was gone, replaced again by that sharp focus. "But it's what I have now." Silence. Heavy. Final. Because that was the truth. Whether they liked it or not, Jungkook had already crossed the line. And now, whatever came next, wouldn't just depend on him. It would depend on how long he could hold on to himself, before whatever he took started taking him instead. The shift wasn't sudden this time. It was gradual, and that made it worse, because they could see it happening, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Jungkook didn't move for a few seconds after he said it. "We end it here." The words still hung in the air, heavy, final, but now they were being tested. By whatever was inside him, his breathing slowed again. Too slow, controlled to the point where it didn't feel natural anymore. His shoulders relaxed slightly, but not out of calm, out of precision, like his body was recalibrating. "Jungkook," Namjoon said carefully, stepping closer. "Talk to me." Jungkook turned his head just enough to acknowledge him, but his eyes didn't fully focus. Like part of him was somewhere else, listening, calculating, processing something deeper than the moment. They built this wrong, Jungkook said suddenly. The words came out calm, certain, but not fully his. Yoongi's gaze sharpened immediately. What do you mean? Jungkook didn't look at him. It's not just a trigger, he continued. It's a loop. Silence. Because that changed everything again. Explain, Yoongi said. Jungkook's fingers twitched slightly at his side, like he was resisting something internal. It feeds on reaction, he said. The more you push, the more it pushes back. Taehyung shook his head, confused. That doesn't make sense. It does, Yoongi said quietly, eyes still locked on Jungkook. It amplifies extremes until you break. Jungkook nodded slightly. Or until it stabilizes. That word hit differently. Stabilizes. Stabilizes into what? Jin asked. Jungkook finally looked at him, and this time there was something colder behind his gaze. Control. Silence. Because that answer wasn't comforting. It was dangerous. You're saying this thing is trying to stabilize inside you? Hoseok asked, his voice tight. Jungkook didn't deny it. It's adapting, he said, faster than it did with Jimin. That made sense and made everything worse, because Jimin had resisted it, slowed it down, carried it. But Jungkook was engaging with it, actively. That's not good, Namjoon said immediately. Jungkook tilted his head slightly. It is if I use it first. That answer hit like a warning, because that wasn't strategy anymore. That was risk. Real risk. You're not using it, Taehyung said quickly. It's using you. For a second, just a second, Jungkook's expression flickered. Like something inside him reacted to that. Something real. But then it steadied again. Then I'll finish it before it finishes me. The confidence was back, but it didn't feel right. It felt enhanced. Yoongi stepped forward slowly. You don't rush this, he said. You understand it. Jungkook nodded once. I do. No, Yoongi replied, his tone sharper now. You think you do. That tension snapped slightly, but not outward. It pulled inward, into Jungkook. His jaw tightened, his hands clenched. I can feel it, Jungkook said, his voice dropping. Every layer, every reaction, it's trying to push. He stepped forward slightly toward the figures, and I can trace it back. The figures didn't move, but something about their posture shifted. Subtle, but noticeable. Trace it? The first one asked. Jungkook nodded. There's a source. The second figure let out a quiet breath. You're learning fast. Jungkook didn't react to that. Faster than you expected. Silence. Because now, the dynamic had changed. This wasn't just them guiding him anymore. This was Jungkook starting to push back. Where is it? Namjoon asked quickly. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His eyes shifted again, like he was following something invisible, mapping it, feeling it. Then, below. The word came out slow, certain. Everyone froze. Below what? Hoseok asked. Jungkook's gaze dropped slightly, toward the ground beneath them. This. Silence. Because that meant this wasn't just a meeting point. This was part of something bigger, hidden, layered, built underneath. A structure, Yoongi muttered. Not just a location. Jungkook nodded slightly. They're not standing at the source. His eyes flicked back up to the figures. They're guarding it. That changed everything again. Because now, this wasn't just about confronting them. This was about getting past them. You're not supposed to figure that out this quickly, the first figure said. Calm, but slightly different now. Less confident. Jungkook took another step forward. You underestimated me. Silence. And this time, the figures didn't deny it. Namjoon stepped closer to Jungkook again, his voice low. If there's something below us, we don't rush in. Jungkook didn't look at him. We don't have time. We make time, Namjoon insisted. Jungkook's head tilted slightly. That's what he thought too. That line hit hard, because it wasn't just a statement. It was a reminder. Of Jimin, of the choice he made, of where it led. Taehyung stepped in again, more desperate now. And look what happened to him. That one landed. Jungkook froze for half a second, just enough for it to show. The real him. Still there. Still fighting. "I know," Jungkook said quietly. And for a moment, it sounded like him again, fully. But then his expression hardened. "That's why I'm ending it. Final. Again. No hesitation left." Yoongi exhaled slowly. "Then we do it right." Jungkook nodded once. "We go down." The words were simple, but the direction was clear now. Not forward, not around, down. Into whatever had been hidden beneath all of this from the beginning. The figures shifted again, this time more visibly, like they were deciding something. Calculating, adjusting. "If you go down there," the first one said slowly, "there's no coming back the same." Jungkook didn't blink. Good. That answer didn't feel human anymore. Not fully. And everyone felt it. The line had been crossed, not physically, not completely, but mentally, emotionally. Something inside Jungkook had already changed. And now, they weren't just following him into danger. They were following him into something that might not let him come back at all. "Then we move together," Namjoon said firmly. No splitting up, Jungkook didn't argue. But he didn't confirm either. Because in his mind, this wasn't about together anymore. This was about reaching the source, no matter what it cost. He took another step forward, toward the structure, toward whatever entrance was hidden below. And this time, no one stopped him. Because they all knew this was the point of no return. And whatever was waiting underneath that bridge wasn't just the source of the problem. It was the answer. The real one. The one Jimin never wanted them to find. And now, they were about to walk straight into it. The entrance wasn't obvious at first. That was the point. If Jungkook hadn't felt it, if something inside him hadn't been pulling him in a specific direction, they would have walked right past it without noticing anything. But now, it was clear. A narrow gap behind the rusted metal structure, partially hidden by broken panels and shadow. It didn't look like anything important, just another piece of decay under the bridge. But the moment Jungkook stepped closer, the air shifted again. Stronger this time, he stopped right in front of it. The others gathered behind him, instinctively closing the distance. No one spoke for a second. Because now, it was real. This was the entrance. "This is it," Jungkook said quietly. Namjoon glanced at the others, then back at him. "We don't rush in." Jungkook didn't respond. He just reached out and pushed the loose panel aside. It moved easier than expected, like it had been opened before. Recently, the gap widened just enough to reveal darkness behind it. Not empty darkness, depth, a space that went further than it should have. "They built this under the city," Hosiak muttered under his breath. Yoongi stepped closer, crouching slightly to get a better look. "Not built," he said, "modified." That made it worse, because it meant this place existed before and someone had repurposed it for this. For whatever this system was, Jungkook stepped inside first. No hesitation, the others followed immediately. The space inside was narrow at the entrance but opened up after a few steps. Concrete walls, cold, damp. The sound of water from above was gone now, replaced by something else. A low hum, barely noticeable but constant. "Do you hear that?" Taehyung whispered. "Yeah," Jin replied. "And I don't like it." Jungkook didn't comment. He was already moving forward, deeper into the corridor. His pace wasn't rushed, but it wasn't cautious either. It was intentional, like he knew where he was going, even if he couldn't fully explain how. "Jungkook, slow down," Namjoon said. "We don't know what's ahead." Jungkook didn't stop. "I do." That answer didn't sit right, but no one argued, not yet. The deeper they went, the more the environment changed. The walls became smoother, less broken, more maintained. Like this wasn't just an abandoned space anymore. It was active, used. "This isn't random," Yoongi said quietly. "Someone's been here. Recently." Hosok exhaled slowly. "That means we're not alone." Jungkook's hand flexed slightly at his side. "I know." They reached a wider section, a junction. 3 paths. Left, right, and forward. Jungkook stopped, for the first time since entering. his head tilted slightly, like he was listening again, feeling, tracking something deeper than sound. "Which way?" Jin asked. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His breathing slowed again, that unnatural control returning. Then he pointed forward. "That one." Yoongi studied him for a second. "You're sure?" Jungkook nodded. "It's strongest there." No one questioned what "it" meant. They all understood, and that made the decision heavier. But they moved forward. The hum grew louder, not by much, but enough to notice, enough to feel it vibrating slightly through the ground. Taeyoung swallowed. "This feels wrong." "It is wrong," Namjoon replied. "But we're already here." Jungkook's steps didn't slow. If anything, they became more precise, more aligned. Like the closer he got, the clearer everything became for him, not for them. They turned another corner, then another. The structure twisted in ways that didn't feel natural, not like a simple underground passage, more like something designed to disorient, to confuse. But Jungkook didn't hesitate, not once. "How do you know where to go?" Hoseok asked finally. Jungkook's voice came out low. "Because it knows where I am." Silence. That answer wasn't comforting. It meant this wasn't just him tracking it. It was also tracking him, actively. They reached a final corridor, narrower, darker. The hum now clearly audible, low, constant, almost like a pulse. And at the end of it, a door, metal, clean, out of place compared to everything else. "That's not old," Jin said immediately. "No," Yoongi agreed. "That's new." Jungkook stopped in front of it. His hand hovered near the surface, but didn't touch it yet. "This is the core," he said. His voice wasn't uncertain. It was absolute. Namjoon stepped beside him. "Then we don't just walk in." Jungkook turned his head slightly. "We don't have another option." Taeyoung stepped closer, his voice tight. "We always have another option." Jungkook looked at him, and for a second, something flickered again. Something real. Not this time. That was it, the final answer. Because this wasn't about options anymore. It was about ending something that had already gone too far. Jungkook placed his hand on the door. The reaction was immediate. A soft click, then a low mechanical sound as it unlocked. The others tensed instantly, but no one pulled him back, because they all knew this was it. The center, the source, the place everything had been leading to. Jungkook pushed the door open, and the moment it moved, the hum stopped. Completely. Silence. Sudden. Absolute. And in that silence, something shifted. Not around them, not in the room, but in Jungkook. Because whatever had been guiding him, pulling him, aligning him, just went quiet. And that was far more dangerous. Because now, there was nothing left to follow. Only whatever was waiting inside. And as the door opened wider, the truth finally stepped into view. The room wasn't what any of them expected. No machines lining the walls, no chaotic setup, no obvious signs of something complex or high-tech. It was controlled, minimal, clean in a way that felt wrong for a place hidden under a decaying structure. At the center of the room stood a single vertical unit, transparent, cylindrical, faint light pulsing inside it like a slow heartbeat. Tubes ran from its base into the floor, disappearing beneath the surface like roots. And inside, something moved. Not clearly, not visibly enough to define, but enough to know it wasn't empty. Jungkook stepped in first. The others followed, slower this time, more cautious, because now there was no guessing left. This was it, the source. "So this is what you've been hiding," Yoongi said quietly, his eyes scanning every detail. "Not hiding," a voice replied. Everyone turned instantly. One of the figures had followed them in. The same calm presence, the same unreadable tone, containing. That word didn't make it better. It made it worse. Jungkook didn't look at the figure. His focus was locked on the cylinder. "That's what's been inside, Jimin," he said. It wasn't a question. The figure nodded slightly. A version of it. Silence. Because that meant what they were seeing now was something larger, more complete, What is it? Namjoon asked. The figure stepped slightly closer to the center. It's a behavioral amplifier, they said. A system designed to identify emotional thresholds and push them beyond stability. Hoseok frowned. You're talking like it's a tool. It is, the figure replied. Yoongi's expression darkened. No, it was. Now it's something else. The figure didn't deny it. Jungkook took another step closer to the cylinder. The faint light inside pulsed slightly faster, like it recognized him, like it reacted. It knows I'm here, Jungkook said. The figure nodded again. It was always meant to. Tae-young shook his head. This is insane. Jin crossed his arms, his voice sharp. Why build something like this? The figure's answer came without hesitation. Control. Silence. Heavy. Because that word explained everything and nothing at the same time. You wanted to control people, Namjoon said. We wanted to understand them, the figure corrected. Yoongi let out a quiet breath. And you thought pushing them to the edge would do that? The figure's gaze didn't shift. The edge is where people reveal who they really are. That logic was dangerous and completely unacceptable. So you used him, Hoseok said, his voice tight with anger. You used Jimin. He came to us, the figure repeated. Jungkook's hand clenched again. And I'm ending it. The figure looked at him. For the first time, there was something different in their posture. Less control. Less certainty. You think destroying it will stop everything? Jungkook didn't hesitate. Yes. The figure shook their head slightly. It's already spread. That froze everyone. What? Tae-young asked, his voice breaking slightly. The figure continued, calm as ever. This isn't the only unit. Silence. That changed everything again. Because this wasn't just one system, one location, one source. This was part of something bigger. A network. How many? Yoongi asked quietly. The figure didn't answer directly. Enough. That wasn't good enough. Then we start here, Jungkook said. His voice dropped lower now but steadier. And we take it down one by one. The confidence was back. But now, it wasn't just his. It was mixed with something else. Something sharper. The figure watched him carefully. You're adapting faster than any subject we've seen. That word subject hit wrong. Jungkook didn't react. I'm not your subject. The figure tilted their head slightly. Not anymore. Silence. Because that meant one thing. He had already moved past whatever role they expected him to play. And now, he was something else entirely. Jungkook stepped closer to the cylinder. The light inside pulsed faster now, reacting, responding. Jungkook, wait, Namjoon said quickly. We don't know what happens if you interact with it directly. Jungkook didn't stop. I do. That answer came too fast, too certain. Yoongi saw it immediately. That's not you talking. Jungkook paused for half a second, just enough for it to show again. That flicker, that internal conflict. But then his expression hardened again. It doesn't matter, he reached out, his hand inches away from the surface. If this is the core, then ending it here ends everything connected to it. Or triggers something worse, Yoongi countered. Jungkook didn't respond. Because the truth was, he didn't know for sure. But he also didn't care anymore. Not about the risk. Not about the uncertainty. Only about one thing. Ending it. Jimin carried this for months, Jungkook said quietly. He fought it. Slowed it down. His hand moved closer. I'm not carrying it. Another inch. I'm finishing it. His fingers touched the surface. And the reaction was instant. The light inside the cylinder surged bright, unstable. The hum returned but louder now. Sharper. The entire room vibrated slightly. Jungkook! Tae-young shouted. But Jungkook didn't pull back. His hand stayed pressed against it. His expression completely still. Then his eyes widened slightly. Not in fear, not in pain, in realization. It's not just reacting, Jungkook said slowly. It's connecting. Silence. Because that meant this wasn't just an object. It was interactive, adaptive, alive in its own way. Jungkook, pull back. Namjoon stepped forward, but Yoongi stopped him again. Wait. Jungkook's breathing shifted again. Faster now, his grip tightening. "I can see it," he said. "All of it." His voice dropped. Every layer, every connection. The light surged again. The room shook slightly harder. "Jungkook!" Hoseok's voice broke. But Jungkook didn't move. Because now, he wasn't just standing in front of the source. He was inside it. Mentally, emotionally, fully connected. And whatever he was seeing was bigger than anything they had imagined. Because the next words out of his mouth changed everything. "This isn't the beginning," Jungkook said quietly. "It's already past the point of stopping." "No." The word came out sharp, immediate, cutting straight through whatever Jungkook had just said. Namjoon stepped forward this time without hesitation, his voice firm in a way that didn't leave room for doubt. "We're not accepting that." But Jungkook didn't look at him. His hand was still pressed against the cylinder, his eyes fixed on something none of them could see. His breathing was uneven now, not from panic, but from overload. Information. Too much of it. "You don't understand," Jungkook said quietly. "It's not just one system. It's layered across multiple points, interconnected." Yoongi's gaze sharpened. "A network." Jungkook nodded slightly. "And this." His fingers tightened against the surface. "This is just one node." Silence. Heavy. "Because that meant destroying this wouldn't end it. Not completely." "Then we isolate it," Jin said quickly. "We shut this one down and track the rest." But Jungkook shook his head slowly. "You can't isolate something that's already integrated." That word again. Integrated. It wasn't just out there anymore. It was in people, in systems, in reactions. "Then we disconnect it," Hoseok said, frustration rising. "There has to be a way." Jungkook's lips parted slightly, but for a second, no words came out. Because whatever he was seeing was still unfolding, still processing. And then, there is. That got everyone's attention instantly. "How?" Taeyoung asked, stepping closer despite everything. Jungkook's voice dropped. "You don't destroy it." A pause. "You overwrite it." Silence. Because that was something none of them expected. Yoongi narrowed his eyes. "Overwrite with what?" Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His gaze shifted slightly, like he was following something deeper inside the system. Then a stronger pattern. That answer didn't clarify anything. It made it more dangerous. "What does that even mean?" Hoseok asked. Jungkook finally pulled his hand back slightly but didn't fully disconnect. His fingers still hovered close enough to maintain the connection. "It adapts based on input," he said. "It amplifies what it reads." Namjoon stepped closer again. "So we feed it something different?" Jungkook nodded once. "Something stable. Something it can't push further." Silence. Because now the idea was forming. And it wasn't simple. "You're talking about replacing the trigger," Yoongi said slowly. Jungkook nodded again. "With something stronger than it." Taeyoung shook his head. "Stronger than something that's been pushing people to their limits?" Jungkook's expression didn't shift. "It doesn't need to be stronger in force." A pause. "It needs to be unbreakable." That word landed differently. Because it wasn't about intensity anymore. It was about stability, consistency, something that couldn't be pushed past its limit. "That doesn't exist," Jin said quietly. Jungkook looked at him, and for the first time, there was something clear in his eyes again. Something real. "It does." Silence. Because now they understood. "No," Namjoon said immediately. "Absolutely not." Jungkook didn't argue, but he didn't step back either. "It's the only way." Hoseok shook his head. "You're not using yourself again." "I'm not using myself," Jungkook replied. "I'm finishing what he started." That hit hard. Because this wasn't just about stopping the system anymore. This was about completing something Jimin had begun. A sacrifice, a transfer, a choice. Taeyoung stepped forward again, closer this time, his voice breaking slightly. "And what happens to you?" Jungkook didn't answer right away, because that answer wasn't simple. "I stabilize it," he said finally. Yoongi's expression darkened. That's not an answer. Jungkook exhaled slowly. It stops pushing. And you? Yoongi pressed. Jungkook's gaze dropped for a second, then lifted again. I hold it. Silence. Because that meant one thing. He wouldn't destroy it. He wouldn't remove it. He would carry it. Completely. Fully. Without passing it on again. That's not ending it, Jin said. That's becoming it. Jungkook didn't deny it. And that was the worst part. Namjoon stepped in front of him again, this time not asking, blocking. We are not doing this. Jungkook looked at him. Calm. Too calm. Move. No. The word was final. Firm. We find another way. Jungkook's jaw tightened slightly. There isn't one. Then we make one, Namjoon shot back. The tension snapped again, but this time it didn't explode outward. It folded inward, into Jungkook. His hands clenched, his breathing hitched slightly. And for a second, just a second, it looked like he might lose control. But then, he closed his eyes. One breath. In, out. When he opened them again, he was steady. You can't stop me, he said quietly. Not aggressive, not angry, just certain. Taehyung's voice came out softer now. We're not trying to stop you. A pause. We're trying to keep you. That line hit deeper than anything else. Because it wasn't about logic anymore. It was about losing him, just like they were losing Jimin. Jungkook didn't respond right away. His gaze shifted slightly back to the cylinder. The light inside pulsed again. Waiting, reacting. If I don't do this, Jungkook said slowly, it keeps spreading. He looked back at them. More people, more damage. Silence. Because that was the truth. And they all knew it. Yoongi exhaled slowly. And if you do this, we lose you. Jungkook didn't deny it. Again. Because maybe that was part of the cost. A long silence followed. Heavy. Final. Because this was it. The real decision. Not about going there. Not about facing the system. But about what they were willing to lose to stop it. Jungkook turned back to the cylinder, his hand lifting again, this time without hesitation, because in his mind, the answer was already clear. And just before his fingers touched it again, he said one thing, quiet, final. I won't let it take anyone else. And in that moment, everyone realized this wasn't just a sacrifice. It was a claim. No. This time, it wasn't sharp. It wasn't loud. It was steady. And that made it stronger. Yoongi stepped forward, closer than anyone else had dared. His eyes locked directly on Jungkook, not the version shaped by the system, but the one still underneath it. You don't get to decide that alone. Jungkook didn't move his hand yet, still hovering inches from the cylinder, the light inside pulsing in sync with his breathing now. I already did. His voice was calm, but there was strain under it. A crack that hadn't fully broken yet. Namjoon moved beside Yoongi, not blocking this time, standing with him. Then change it. Jungkook's jaw tightened slightly. You think it's that easy? No, Namjoon said, but I think you're not alone in it. Silence. Because that was the one thing Jungkook had been ignoring this entire time. Not because he didn't know it, but because accepting it would change the decision. Taehyung stepped closer, slower this time, careful not to trigger anything unstable. You said it yourself, he said quietly. It amplifies what's already there. Jungkook's gaze flickered. Just a little. So why are you facing it alone? That question landed deeper than anything else. Because it wasn't about logic. It was about truth. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. The light inside the cylinder pulsed again faster now, like it was reacting to the hesitation, to the doubt. Hoseok stepped in next, his voice tight but steady. If this thing feeds on extremes, then maybe the answer isn't more control. A pause. Maybe it's balance. Yoongi nodded slightly. It's looking for a dominant pattern. His eyes stayed on Jungkook. You don't have to be the only one feeding it. Jungkook's hand trembled slightly. Not much, but enough. You don't understand, he said quietly. If multiple inputs clash, then it destabilizes. Yoongi cut in. Exactly. Silence. Because that was it. A different approach. Not override it with one unbreakable force, but break its ability to lock on to one pattern at all. Taehyung's voice softened. We don't replace it. He took one more step closer. We confuse it. Jungkook's eyes shifted again. Processing, fast, too fast. It'll fight back, he said. Namjoon nodded. Then we hold. Jin stepped forward too now. No hesitation left. All of us. Hoseok exhaled slowly. Together. The word hung there. Together. The exact thing Jimin had tried to avoid. The exact thing Jungkook had been rejecting. And maybe the exact thing the system couldn't handle. Jungkook's hand lowered slightly. Not fully away, but no longer reaching. His breathing changed again. Less forced. Less rigid. If it destabilizes, he said slowly, it could collapse the node. Yoongi nodded once. That's the point. Jungkook looked at each of them now. Really looked. For the first time since stepping into this room. And what he saw wasn't hesitation. It wasn't fear. It was certainty. Not in the outcome, but in the choice. They weren't leaving him to carry it. They weren't letting him become it. They were stepping into it with him. You might not come out the same, Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung didn't hesitate. Neither will you. A pause. So we don't let that happen alone. Silence. Because that was the line. The one that changed everything. Jungkook exhaled slowly. And this time, it sounded real. Not forced. Not controlled. Just real. Then stay close, he said. His voice lower now, but steady in a different way. No matter what happens. Namjoon nodded. Always. Jungkook turned back to the cylinder, his hand lifting again. But this time, it wasn't alone. One by one they stepped closer, not touching it yet, but close enough to be part of it. The light inside reacted instantly. Faster, brighter, unstable. The hum returned, but not steady anymore. Fluctuating, like it couldn't lock onto one rhythm. It's reacting, Hoseok said. Yoongi nodded. Good. Jungkook placed his hand against the surface again. And this time, the reaction exploded. Light surged. The hum fractured into uneven pulses. The entire room vibrated harder. But this time, it wasn't controlled. It wasn't stable. It was breaking. Now, Jungkook said through clenched teeth. All of you stay with me. And they did. No hesitation left. They stepped closer. And in that moment, the system lost its center. Because for the first time, it wasn't facing one pattern. It was facing many. Clashing, balancing, unpredictable, human. And that was something it had never been designed to handle. The light inside the cylinder flickered violently. The hum cracked into sharp bursts. The structure trembled. And Jungkook, standing at the center of it, felt everything shift. Not into control, not into collapse, but into something else entirely. Something unstable, something unknown, something that could either end this or destroy all of them at once. And as the system reached its breaking point, Jungkook realized one thing. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about what would be left after everything broke. The breaking point didn't come with a single explosion. It came in waves, sharp, uneven pulses tearing through the room like something was trying to hold itself together and failing. The cylinder's light flickered violently now, no longer a steady rhythm but chaotic flashes that made it impossible to focus on one point for too long. The hum had fractured into jagged bursts, rising and dropping without pattern. It's destabilizing, Yoongi said, his voice tight but controlled. Jungkook didn't answer. He couldn't. Because the moment all of them stepped into range, really into it, everything inside him amplified again. But this time, it wasn't just his. It was all of theirs. Emotions collided. Not blending, colliding. Taehyung's fear, Hoseok's urgency, Jin's restraint, Namjoon's control, Yoongi's precision, and Jungkook at the center trying to hold all of it without letting any one part take over. His hand pressed harder against the cylinder. Don't pull back, he forced out. His voice strained now. Not steady anymore. Real. Raw. If we lose sync, It stabilizes again. Namjoon stepped even closer, close enough that his shoulder nearly touched Jungkook's. Then we hold the line. The words were firm, but even he felt it. The pressure. It wasn't just mental anymore. It was physical. Like something was pushing back against their presence, trying to separate them, trying to isolate one pattern again. It's resisting, Hoseok said through clenched teeth. Of course it is, Yoongi replied. We're breaking its structure. The light surged again, brighter than before, and for a split second, everything went white. In that flash, Jungkook saw something. Not the room, not the others. Something else. Fragments. Memories that weren't his. Reactions that didn't belong to him. People he didn't know. Faces twisted in fear, anger, desperation. The system's history. Every person it had touched. Every reaction it had pushed past the limit. Jungkook. Taehyung's voice cut through, but it sounded distant, like it was underwater. Jungkook's grip tightened. I can see it, he said, his voice barely holding together. All of them. His breathing hitched sharply. It's too much. Yoongi moved closer instantly. Don't focus on them. His voice was sharp now. Commanding. Focus on us. That anchor. That point. Jungkook's eyes flickered. For a second he lost it. Completely. His body tensed. His breath catching hard, like he was about to be pulled under. And the system reacted instantly. The light steadied, just slightly, trying to lock onto that instability. No! Namjoon stepped in fully now, grabbing Jungkook's arm. Stay here. That contact, physical, real, snapped something back into place. Jungkook gasped, pulling in a sharp breath. I'm here, he said, forcing the words out. I'm still here. The light flickered again, breaking. Yoongi nodded sharply. Good. Hold that. Taehyung moved even closer, his voice softer now, but stronger in a different way. Look at me! Jungkook's gaze shifted. It took effort. But he did it. Not them, Taehyung said. Not what it's showing you. A pause. Us. That word grounded something. Not completely, but enough. Jungkook's breathing steadied slightly. It's trying to divide us, Hoseok said, his voice strained but clear. Then we don't let it, Jin replied. The pressure surged again. Stronger this time. The room shook harder, small cracks forming along the edges of the walls. The cylinder's surface flickered, like it was losing cohesion. It's breaking, Yoongi said. But it's not done yet. Jungkook felt it too. The resistance. The system pushing back harder now, trying one last time to stabilize, to isolate, to survive. It's going to try to take one of us, Jungkook said suddenly. Everyone froze for half a second. What? Namjoon asked. Jungkook's voice dropped. It needs a center. If it can't find one, it'll force one. That was the final move, the last defense, and it meant one thing. Someone was about to be targeted directly. The light inside the cylinder surged again, this time focused, narrowing, searching. Stay close, Yoongi said immediately, but it was already happening. Jungkook felt it shift. The pull stronger now, sharper, locking onto him again. Of course, he was still the strongest signal. No, Jungkook whispered. He pushed back harder, forcing his focus outward toward them, toward the group, not inward, not alone. The light flickered, losing its lock, and then it shifted. Fast, too fast. Taehyung's breath caught. His body tensed suddenly. He started, but the words cut off. His eyes widened. The system had found a new target, and this time, it wasn't Jungkook. Taehyung! Hoseok shouted. Taehyung staggered slightly, his hand pressing against his head like something had slammed into him. It's loud, he gasped. Jungkook moved instantly, grabbing his arm. No, stay with me. Taehyung's gaze flickered, unfocused. I can't. Yes, you can, Jungkook said sharply. Look at me. The light surged again, unstable now, switching between them, unable to lock fully onto one. Yoongi stepped closer, voice cutting through again. Don't let it choose. Namjoon tightened his grip on Jungkook's arm. We don't split. Jin stepped in on Taehyung's other side. You're not taking this alone. The system pulsed violently, now losing structure, losing rhythm, because it couldn't isolate, couldn't stabilize, couldn't choose. And that was the crack. The final one. Jungkook felt it shift again, this time not as pressure, but as collapse. "It's happening," he said, his voice low but certain. The light inside the cylinder flared bright, blinding, then fractured completely. The hum shattered into silence, and for 1 second, everything stopped. No sound, no movement, no pressure, just stillness. And then, the cylinder cracked, a sharp, splitting sound echoing through the room, and in that moment, everyone knew this wasn't just breaking, it was ending, or turning into something else entirely. The crack didn't stop. It spread. Thin lines racing across the surface of the cylinder like something inside was pushing outward harder than the structure could contain. No light now, no hum, just that sound, splitting, stretching, breaking. Jungkook didn't move. None of them did. Because in that silence, something worse replaced the chaos. Absence. Total absence of the pressure that had been there the entire time. And that didn't feel like relief. It felt like a warning. "Why did it stop?" Hosiak whispered. No one answered. Because they were all thinking the same thing. It shouldn't have. Jungkook slowly pulled his hand back from the surface. His breathing was steady again, but his expression wasn't. His eyes scanned the cylinder, searching for something that wasn't there anymore.
"Didn't shut down," he said quietly. Yoongi's gaze sharpened instantly. "Then what did it do?" Jungkook didn't answer right away, because he was listening, not to the room, not to the others, but to something deeper, something new. Taehyung straightened slowly beside him, his hands still trembling slightly. "I don't feel it anymore," he said. "None of it." That should have been a good thing, but it was, not with the way Jungkook was reacting. "Jungkook," Namjoon said carefully, "talk to us." Jungkook blinked once, then again, like he was trying to focus through something that wasn't visible. "It moved," he said, silence heavy. "What do you mean it moved?" Jin asked. Jungkook's jaw tightened. "It didn't collapse." A pause. "It transferred." The word hit harder than anything before it, because they all understood what that meant. "To where?" Yoongi asked quietly. Jungkook's gaze lifted slowly, not to the cylinder, not to the walls, but to them. And for the first time since everything started, there was no distortion in his eyes, no external pull, no visible instability, just something deeper, something they couldn't read. "It's not in one place anymore," Jungkook said, his voice calm, too calm. Taehyung took a small step back without realizing it. But Jungkook didn't look away. "It spread," he continued, "across multiple hosts." Silence, because that meant one thing: this wasn't the end, not even close. It was the beginning of something worse, something they couldn't contain in one room, in one system, in one person. Hosok shook his head slowly. "No, we stopped it." Jungkook's expression didn't change. "We broke the structure." A pause, "not the system." The pieces clicked into place too fast, too clearly. The cylinder was never meant to hold everything. It was meant to control it. And now that control was gone, Namjoon's voice dropped. "You're saying it's inside people now?" Jungkook nodded once. Yoongi exhaled slowly. "Then we don't know who's affected." Jungkook's gaze didn't move. "Not yet." Taehyung swallowed hard. "Then how do we stop it?" Jungkook didn't answer immediately, because that answer was worse than the question. His eyes flickered slightly, just once, and in that split second something shifted, not outward, not obvious, but enough for Yoongi to notice, enough for Namjoon to tense slightly, enough for Taehyung's breath to catch again. Because whatever had been inside that system hadn't disappeared, it had adapted, and now it didn't need a machine, it didn't need a structure, it didn't need containment. It just needed one thing, a host strong enough to carry it without breaking. Jungkook finally spoke again, quiet, final. "We find it." A pause, "before it finds us." And as the last crack split through the cylinder behind them, no light, no sound, no warning, only one question remained. If the system was no longer in the room, then which one of them was already carrying it? Silence followed them out, not the kind that felt empty, but the kind that pressed in from every side like something unseen was listening, watching, waiting. No one spoke as they stepped back through the corridor, past the junction, through the narrow entrance, and out from under the bridge. The city noise returned instantly, but it didn't feel normal anymore. It felt distant, irrelevant, like everything outside that place had no idea what had just been released into it. Jungkook walked ahead again. Same pace. Same direction, but different, subtly, enough that Yoongi noticed first. He's not slowing down, Yoongi muttered quietly. Namjoon glanced forward. He doesn't need to. That answer wasn't reassuring. Behind them, Taehyung kept glancing at his own hands, flexing his fingers like he expected something to be there, something to feel, but there was nothing. And that was the problem. I don't feel anything, Taehyung said finally. It's gone. Jin exhaled slowly. Or it's hiding. That landed heavier than expected, because now that possibility couldn't be ignored. Hosok ran a hand through his hair, packing slightly faster to catch up. We need to get back to Jimin, now. Jungkook stopped, abruptly. The others nearly collided into him again. He turned slowly. No, the word cut through everything, sharp, immediate, final. Namjoon stepped forward. What do you mean no? Jungkook's gaze moved across them, one by one, like he was studying something, measuring something. If it transferred, he said slowly, then it didn't go far. Silence, because that meant one thing, it could be here with them. Now Yoongi's expression tightened. You think one of us? I don't think, Jungkook cut in. I know it's active. That answer didn't calm anything, it made it worse. Taehyung took a small step back again. What does that mean? Jungkook's eyes lingered on him for half a second longer than the others, then moved on. It means it's adapting again. Hosok frowned. Adapting to what? Jungkook didn't hesitate. Us. Silence, heavy, because now this wasn't just something external, it was something learning them closely. Then we isolate, Jin said quickly. We separate until we figure out who's affected. No, Jungkook's voice dropped lower. That's what it wants. Everyone froze. Explain, Yoongi said. Jungkook stepped closer to them now, not aggressive, but intentional. It thrives on isolation, he said, on pushing one person past the limit. A pause. Like it did with Jimin. That truth hit hard again because they had seen it, lived it, missed it. Namjoon nodded slowly, so we stay together. Jungkook nodded once. No matter what, Taehyung swallowed. Even if one of us starts, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to, Jungkook did it for him. Losing control, silence, because that was the real test now, not finding it, not stopping it, but facing what happened when it started showing itself again. And it would. That much was certain. Yoongi crossed his arms slightly, thinking, it won't activate randomly. Jungkook nodded. No, it needs a trigger, Yoongi continued. An emotional spike, something strong enough to amplify. Hosok exhaled slowly. So we stay calm. Jungkook didn't respond, because he knew better. Calm wasn't sustainable, not like this, not after everything, not with what they were carrying now. We manage it, Namjoon corrected, not suppress it. That distinction mattered. Because suppression was exactly what the system exploited, Taehyung nodded slowly. So we don't hide anything. Jin added quietly, no secrets. That word hung there, heavier than the rest, because secrets were exactly how this started. Jungkook's gaze shifted slightly again, not obvious, but Yoongi caught it. You already know something, Yoongi said, not a question. Jungkook didn't deny it. Silence. The others looked at him now, waiting. Jungkook, Namjoon said carefully, what aren't you saying? Jungkook exhaled slowly, his shoulders tensing again, but not from the system, from something else, something internal. When it broke, he said quietly, I felt the shift. Taehyung frowned. The transfer, Jungkook nodded. It didn't split evenly. That changed everything again, because that meant someone took more than the others. Someone became the new center. Who? Hosok asked immediately. Jungkook didn't answer right away, because that answer carried weight, real weight. His eyes moved again. One by one, measuring, watching, then he stopped. On one person, the silence stretched, and in that moment everything slowed because they all felt it, that shift, that focus, that realization. Taehyung's breath hitched slightly. Jungkook, but Jungkook didn't look away. It's not fully stabilized yet, he said slowly, but it's there. Yoongi stepped slightly to the side, clearing the line between them. Say it. Jungkook's voice dropped, quiet, final. It chose him. And for the first time since leaving that room, the real fear began. It chose him. Words didn't just land, they divided the space between them. No one moved for a second, not because they didn't understand, but because they did, completely. Taehyung didn't step back this time, he didn't speak either. His eyes stayed on Jungkook, searching for something, doubt, hesitation, anything that would make those words less final. But Jungkook didn't look uncertain, and that was the problem. You're wrong, Hosok said immediately, too quickly, like if he said it fast enough, it would become true. Jungkook didn't react to the denial. I felt the shift, he repeated. It aligned to one center. Jin stepped forward, positioning himself slightly between them without making it obvious. That doesn't mean it's him. Yoongi's gaze stayed sharp, moving between Jungkook and Taehyung. Then who? Silence, because no one had another answer. Namjoon exhaled slowly, stepping into the space before it could fracture further. We don't jump to conclusions. But even he didn't sound fully convinced. Taehyung finally spoke, His voice was quieter than usual but steady. Then test it. That surprised all of them, including Jungkook. If it's inside me, Taehyung continued. You said it needs a trigger, right? Jungkook's expression shifted slightly. Yes. Then we find out, Taehyung said. Hosok shook his head immediately. No, absolutely not. We're not provoking this thing on purpose. We're not provoking it, Taehyung replied. We are controlling when it happens. That distinction sounded logical, but it didn't make it safer. Yoongi nodded slowly. He's right about one thing. Everyone looked at him. If it activates randomly, we lose control of the situation. A pause. If we trigger it on our terms, we at least see it coming. Namjoon rubbed the back of his neck, thinking fast. And if it overwhelms him, silence, because that was the real risk. Taehyung didn't hesitate. Then you stop me. The way he said it, calm, direct, made it worse, because he wasn't afraid of what might happen to him. He was afraid of what might happen to them if they didn't act. Jungkook's jaw tightened slightly. You don't know what it feels like. Taehyung met his gaze. Then don't let me face it alone. That hit, again the same line, the same truth, just from the other side now. Jungkook exhaled slowly, and for a second his control slipped. Not completely, but enough for it to show. The conflict. The hesitation. Fine, Jungkook said finally, his voice lower now, but we do it carefully. Hosok looked like he wanted to argue again, but he stopped, because deep down he knew they didn't have a better option. Where? Jin asked. Yoongi glanced around. The street was too open, too exposed. Not here, Namjoon nodded. We go somewhere contained. Jungkook turned slightly, already deciding. Back to the studio. That choice made sense. Familiar space, controlled environment. Limited variables. Then move, Namjoon said. No one hesitated this time. The urgency had shifted. It wasn't about chasing something anymore. It was about confronting it before it grew stronger. The ride back was different. Not silent this time, but careful, every word measured, every glance noticed. Taehyung sat near the window again, but he wasn't looking outside. He was watching his own reflection, studying every small movement, every blink. Like he was trying to catch something before it caught him. Jungkook sat across from him. Their eyes met more than once, and every time it lingered longer than before. Not tension, not exactly, something deeper, something unresolved. When they finally arrived, no one wasted time. They moved inside quickly, locking the door behind them. The studio felt smaller now, tighter, like the walls had moved closer without them noticing. Clear the space, Namjoon said. They moved equipment aside, creating an open area in the center. Nothing to trip over, nothing to break, nothing to use, just space. Taehyung stepped into the middle, alone. What do I do? He asked. Jungkook stepped forward, but not too close, not yet. Think about something that pushes you, he said. Taehyung frowned slightly. Like what? Jungkook didn't hesitate. Something you've been holding back. Silence. Because that wasn't a simple instruction. That was personal. Taehyung's gaze dropped for a second, then lifted again. You mean something I didn't say? Jungkook nodded once. Yes. Hosok shifted slightly. Maybe we should rethink. No, Taehyung said, firm, final. If this is inside me, I need to know. Jin crossed his arms, tension clear in his posture. Then we stay ready. Yoongi nodded. We don't react too early. Namjoon added. And we don't hesitate if it goes too far. Everyone understood what that meant. Taehyung took a slow breath. In, out, then another. His shoulders tensed slightly, not from fear, from focus. Okay, he said quietly, then don't interrupt. Jungkook's eyes didn't leave him. We won't. A long pause followed, heavy waiting, then Taehyung spoke. I knew. The words were quiet, but they hit instantly. Jungkook's expression shifted slightly. About what? Taehyung's gaze didn't move. About Jimin. Silence, sharp, immediate. I knew something was wrong, Taehyung continued. Before any of you, Hosok frowned. What are you talking about? Taehyung didn't look at him. I saw it first. A pause, and I didn't say anything. The air changed, subtle but real. Jungkook felt it immediately, that pressure faint but growing. Why? Jungkook asked quietly. Taehyung's jaw tightened. Because I thought he could handle it. The words came out heavier now, more emotion behind them. I thought if I stayed quiet, it wouldn't get worse. The pressure increased. Jungkook's fingers twitched slightly. That's not your fault, Namjoon said quickly, but Taehyung shook his head. No, his voice rose slightly. It is. The shift hit harder this time. The room felt tighter, the air heavier, and Jungkook knew this was it. The trigger. Taehyung's breathing changed, faster now, uneven. I saw him breaking and I let it happen. His hands clenched at his sides. I watched him carry it alone. The pressure spiked. Taehyung. Hosok stepped forward, but Yoongi stopped him again. Wait. Taehyung's eyes flickered just once, and in that moment something else looked through them, not fully, not clearly, but enough for Jungkook to see it. It's starting, Jungkook said quietly, and just like that, the next phase began. The shift was subtle but undeniable. It didn't explode outward. It slipped in quietly like something taking its first breath inside Taehyung's mind. His shoulders tensed, then relaxed too quickly. His breathing steadied, but in the same unnatural way Jungkook's had earlier. Controlled, too controlled. Taehyung, Namjoon said carefully, taking a slow step forward. Stay with us. Taehyung didn't answer. His gaze was still forward, but it wasn't focused anymore, not on them. Not on anything in the room, like he was seeing something layered over reality. It's not loud, Taehyung said suddenly, his voice calm, almost detached. It's clear, Jungkook's jaw tightened. What do you mean? Taehyung blinked once, slowly. Everything makes sense now. That line hit wrong, completely wrong. Yoongi moved slightly to Jungkook's side. That's how it stabilizes, he muttered. It gives clarity before it pushes further. Taehyung's lips curved just slightly, not a smile. Something else, you all missed it, he said. Even now. Hosok shook his head immediately. No, we're right here. Taehyung turned his head, and when he looked at them his eyes were steady, too steady. No, he said quietly. You're reacting. Silence, because that was exactly what the system exploited. Reaction, emotion, instability. Jungkook stepped forward, slowly. Then what are you doing? Taehyung tilted his head slightly. Observing. That word echoed what Jungkook had said earlier. But now it sounded different. Detached, calculated. Taehyung, listen to me, Jungkook said, his voice lower now. You're not just observing. Taehyung didn't respond immediately. His gaze drifted again past Jungkook, past the others, like he was tracking something invisible. Then it's inefficient, he said. Jin frowned. What is? Taehyung looked back at them. The way you're handling this. The tone wasn't emotional. It wasn't defensive. It was analytical, cold, and that was worse. You're dividing your focus, Taehyung continued. Trying to protect each other instead of solving the problem. Namjoon's expression hardened. We are solving it. Taehyung shook his head slightly. No, you're delaying it. The air shifted again, stronger now, the pressure returning but different from before, sharper, directed. Jungkook felt it immediately. It's stabilizing, he said under his breath. Yoongi nodded once. Faster than before. Of course it was. Taehyung wasn't resisting the way Jimin had. He wasn't suppressing it. He was aligning with it. Taehyung, Hosok said, his voice tight, you need to fight it. Taehyung looked at him, and for a second, just a second, something flickered, something real, but then it disappeared. Why? He asked. The question landed wrong, completely wrong. Because that's not you, Hosok replied immediately. Taehyung's gaze didn't change. How do you define me? Silence. Because that question wasn't simple anymore, not with something inside him actively reshaping perception. You don't get to redefine yourself because of this thing, Jin said sharply. Taehyung tilted his head again. Or maybe this is the version that isn't limited. That line snapped something in Jungkook. No, Jungkook said firmly. That's exactly what it wants you to think. Taehyung's eyes shifted to him, locked, focused. And how would you know? Jungkook didn't hesitate. Because I felt it. A pause. And I didn't let it stay. Silence. The tension pulled tight between them. Taehyung studied him for a second longer. Then, you rejected it. Jungkook shook his head. I controlled it. Taehyung's expression didn't change. Temporary. That word hit like a challenge because maybe it wasn't wrong. The pressure in the room spiked again, this time stronger, more focused, and everyone felt it. It's pushing, Yoongi said quietly. Taehyung's breathing didn't change. No, he said, I'm directing it. That was worse, much worse. Because that meant the system wasn't just active, it had found a host willing to use it. Taehyung, stop, Namjoon said firmly. Right now. Taehyung looked at him, calm, or what? Silence, because no one had a clean answer to that, not one that didn't risk making things worse. Jungkook stepped forward again, closer this time, within reach. You're not in control, Jungkook said. Not fully. Taehyung's eyes flickered slightly just once. I am enough. That was the line, the one that confirmed it. He wasn't fighting anymore. He was accepting, integrating, letting it shape him. Then prove it, Jungkook said suddenly. Everyone froze, even Taehyung. What? Taehyung asked. Jungkook's voice dropped. If you're in control, then you can stop it. Silence, heavy, because that was the real test. Not using it, not directing it, but stopping it, completely. Taehyung's expression didn't change immediately, but something shifted behind his eyes. A pause, then, why would I? That answer hit harder than anything else so far, because it meant one thing, he didn't want to. The room went still, not calm, not safe, just still. And in that stillness, Jungkook realized something. This wasn't just about stopping the system anymore. This was about choosing who they were with it inside them. And right now, Taehyung had already made his choice. The room didn't feel like theirs anymore. Same walls, Same equipment pushed to the edges, same lights overhead. But the center where Taehyung stood felt like something else had taken ownership of it. Not fully, not permanently, but enough to change the balance. No one rushed him, not this time, because they all understood something had shifted beyond simple control. This wasn't just activation anymore. This was alignment. Jungkook took one slow step closer. Close enough to see the smallest changes, the way Taehyung's eyes tracked movement a fraction too precisely, the way his breathing stayed perfectly even no matter what was said, the way his posture didn't carry tension the way it should in a moment like this. "You're not overwhelmed," Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung didn't deny it. "No," a pause, "I'm focused." That word again, twisted, reinforced, strengthened by something that wasn't entirely his. Yoongi's voice cut in from the side, calm but sharper now. "That's how it locks in." Taehyung's gaze shifted slightly toward him. "You keep saying it like it's separate." A small tilt of his head. "It is." That line confirmed the worst possibility. Integration, not partial, not temporary, deep, fast. "It's influencing you," Hosok insisted, his voice tight. Taehyung shook his head slowly. "It's clarifying me." Jin stepped forward this time, unable to hold back anymore. "Then clarify this. Would you hurt one of us if it made sense to you?" The question cut straight to the core. No room to dodge, no space to soften. Taehyung didn't answer immediately. His eyes moved across them, measuring, calculating, weighing something invisible, and that hesitation said enough. Namjoon's voice dropped. "Taehyung." Taehyung finally spoke. If it was necessary, silence, absolute, because that was it. The line had been crossed, not physically, not yet, but mentally, morally. The system had found its foothold. Jungkook exhaled slowly, his gaze never leaving Taehyung. "Then you're not in control." Taehyung didn't react to the accusation. "I'm prioritizing outcome over emotion." Yoongi nodded once like he had been expecting that answer. Exactly what it was designed to do. Taehyung's eyes flickered just slightly, but he didn't break. Then maybe the design was right. That sentence hit harder than anything before it, because it wasn't confusion, it wasn't struggle, it was belief. The room tightened again, not from pressure this time, but from realization. They weren't just trying to stop the system anymore. They were facing someone who believed in it. "We don't let this go further," Namjoon said quietly, stepping forward with intent now, not aggressive, but ready. "You don't get to decide that," Taehyung replied, his voice still calm but firmer now. Jungkook moved at the same time, stepping into the center line between them, not blocking Taehyung, not blocking Namjoon, but holding the space. "No one decides alone," Jungkook said. Taehyung's gaze locked onto him again. "You did." That hit because it was true. Jungkook had been ready to carry it all alone, to end it alone. And now he was facing the reflection of that choice from the other side. "And I was wrong," Jungkook said quietly. The admission shifted something, small, but real. Taehyung's eyes flickered again. "Then why are you still trying to control this?" Jungkook shook his head. "I'm not." A pause. "I'm trying to bring you back." Silence. Because that wasn't about logic anymore, that was about connection. About something the system couldn't fully calculate. Taehyung's expression didn't change, but his breathing did, just slightly. "A crack. Back to what?" he asked. The question wasn't sharp this time, it wasn't detached, it was uncertain. Jungkook took one more step closer, close enough now that if either of them moved too fast, it would be contact. "Back to us," Jungkook said, simple, direct. No explanation, no overthinking, just truth. The room held its breath. Taehyung didn't respond immediately. His eyes searched Jungkook's face like he was trying to find something hidden there, something stable, something real. The system pulsed again, faint but present, like it was reacting to the hesitation, to the conflict. Yoongi noticed it first. "It's losing stability," he said quietly. Hosok exhaled slowly. "Then we keep pushing." Jin stepped closer too. "Not force, pressure." Namjoon nodded. "We don't let it settle." Taehyung's jaw tightened slightly, the calm starting to crack at the edges. "You're interfering," he said. Jungkook didn't step back. "Good." That answer hit differently because it wasn't resistance, it was intention. Taehyung's breathing shifted again, faster now, less controlled, the first real sign of imbalance. "You think this is helping?" he asked. Jungkook didn't hesitate. "I know it is." Silence. The tension stretched. And then Taehyung flinched. Just once, but enough. Enough for all of them to see it, enough to confirm it. The system wasn't fully stable, not yet, not here. "It's breaking," Hosok whispered. Taehyung's head dropped slightly, his hand lifting to his temple like something inside him had spiked too hard. "It's louder now," he muttered. Jungkook stepped even closer, his voice steady. "Then don't listen to it." Taehyung's fingers tightened. "I can't just—" "Yes, you can," Jungkook cut in, "because you're still here." That line hit harder than anything else, because it wasn't about the system. It was about him. Taehyung, the real one, still fighting, still present. The pressure surged again, chaotic now, unstable, the system trying to reassert control but failing to lock in. Jungkook, Taehyung's voice broke slightly, the first real crack. Jungkook didn't move away. Stay with me. Taehyung's eyes flickered again, faster this time, the calm shattering into conflict, into noise, into something real. And in that moment, the balance tipped. Not fully, not completely, but enough to change the direction. Because now Taehyung wasn't aligned anymore, he was fighting, and that was exactly what the system couldn't fully control. And for the first time since it chose him, it started losing him. Umlaut. The moment the shift happened, everyone felt it, not as pressure, not as force, but as a break in something that had been holding too tightly for too long. Taehyung staggered slightly, his breath catching hard like he had just surfaced from deep water. His hand pressed against his head, fingers tightening as if he could physically push something out. It's not clear anymore, he said, voice strained. That was good. That meant the system was losing its clean hold. Jungkook stayed right in front of him, close enough to react instantly, but not touching, not yet. That's because it's not stable, Jungkook said. Don't let it settle again. Yoongi moved a step closer, watching every microchange in Taehyung's expression. It's trying to re-anchor, he said quietly. Don't give it a pattern. Namjoon nodded. Keep him grounded. Hosok stepped in from the side, voice softer now. T, listen to me. Taehyung's eyes flickered toward him, unfocused for a second. Trying, don't try, Jin said firmly. Choose. That word cut through the noise sharper than anything else. Choose, not react, not adapt, not align, choose. Taehyung's breathing hitched again. His shoulders tensed, then shook slightly as the internal pressure surged. It's pulling, he started. Jungkook didn't let him finish. Then pushed back. Their eyes locked, no distortion, no overlay, just raw connection. You're not a system, Jungkook said, his voice low but steady. You're not a pattern, a pause. You're you, that line anchored something deeper than logic. Taehyung's expression twisted, not into calm, not into clarity, but into conflict, real human conflict, and that was exactly what they needed. The system pulsed again, harder this time, but it wasn't clean anymore. It stuttered, glitched, failed to hold a consistent response. It's losing cohesion, Yoongi said. Hosok exhaled. Then we don't stop. June stepped forward fully now, closing the last bit of distance between all of them. No one steps back. Taehyung let out a strained breath, almost a laugh, but broken. It's still here, we know, Jungkook said, but so are you. Silence, then another pulse. Strong, violent. Taehyung's body tensed sharply, his head snapping up as his eyes flickered again, just for a split second, that unnatural clarity flashing back. You're inefficient, he said suddenly. The voice wasn't fully his again. Controlled, cold, the system's last attempt to reassert itself. Jungkook didn't react to the words, he stepped closer instead. Maybe, he said, but we're still here. That answer didn't challenge the logic. It ignored it, and that broke the pattern again. Taehyung's breath hitched, his expression cracking harder this time. Stop, he whispered. Then stop it, Jungkook replied. No hesitation, no softness, just truth. Taehyung's hand dropped from his head slowly, his fingers trembling now, not controlled anymore. Real, human. The pressure surged one last time, sharp, focused, like the system was making a final attempt to lock back in, and then Taehyung clenched his fists, hard, his entire body tightening as he forced the words out through gritted teeth. No, it wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, but it was real, and that was enough. The reaction was immediate, not explosive, not violent, but decisive. The invisible pressure snapped, like something losing its grip completely. Taehyung gasped, stumbling forward, but this time Jungkook caught him. No hesitation, no distance, just contact, real, grounding. Taehyung's breathing was uneven now, fast, unsteady, but his eyes were clear, fully, completely. It's gone, he said weakly. Silence filled the room again, but this time it was different, lighter, not empty, but no longer suffocating. Yoongi watched him closely for another second, then exhaled slowly. Not gone, he said. Broken, Namjoon nodded. And unstable. Hosok let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Jin ran a hand through his hair, tension finally starting to drop. Jungkook didn't move. He still held Taehyung steady, his gaze searching his face for any sign of that distortion returning. But there was none, just exhaustion and something else. Relief. Taehyung looked at him, his voice quieter now. You didn't let me go. Jungkook shook his head slightly. I wasn't going to. A pause. Taehyung swallowed. I know, Jungkook cut in gently, but you didn't. That was what mattered, not how close it got, but that it stopped, that he chose. Slowly the others stepped closer again, not cautious now but present, together, no distance left, because that was the only thing that had worked. Not control, not isolation, but connection. Real, messy, unpredictable connection. Yoongi glanced toward Jungkook. So what now? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His gaze shifted slightly, not to Taehyung, not to the others, but somewhere beyond, thinking, processing, feeling for something that wasn't there anymore, or maybe something that still was. Now, Jungkook said slowly, we watch. Namjoon frowned slightly. For what? Jungkook's expression didn't change. For the next shift, silence, because deep down they all knew this wasn't over, not completely. System wasn't one thing anymore. It was fragments, residual patterns, unstable pieces still out there. And now they knew how it worked, which meant one thing: it would adapt again, learn again, find another way in. Taehyung straightened slowly, still steadying himself but standing on his own now. Then next time, he said quietly, we don't let it get this far. Jungkook looked at him, and for the first time since everything started, there was no tension in that look, just understanding. Next time, Jungkook said, we are ready sooner. The room settled, not calm, not safe, but aware, and that was enough, for now. Because as the night stretched on and the city outside moved like nothing had changed, only one truth stayed with them. This wasn't the end of the system. It was the beginning of learning how to survive it.